In Indonesia, workers extract oil from hazardous wells built over 100 years ago. Here, toxic gases and deadly accidents remain a constant threat. And in Cameroon, sand divers plunge underwater up to 300 times a day, all for the world's most mined resource. We traveled the globe to learn about the world's most dangerous jobs. We'll start in India, where people climb tall trees to harvest lac bugs. Their resin makes jelly beans shiny.
This amber goop comes from bugs, and you've probably eaten it before. It's a natural resin called shellac, and once it's stretched and cooled, it's used in tons of ways, from adding a shine to popular candies like jelly beans and preserving citrus fruit to finishing wood. Its history dates back 3,000 years in India, where it was originally used to make jewelry and adorn palaces. India is the world's largest shellac producer, exporting over $65 million worth of it a year. But fluctuating harvests and prices have put this ancient industry at risk.
शेलक के काम में शुरू से लेके लास्ट तक चैलेंजेस है रह सकते हो नहीं तो इसमें इस बिजनेस को करना काफी टफ है.
So how exactly do a tiny insect's excretions end up on your candy and lemons? We head to India to find out. The Caryolaca insect is teeny, barely big enough to see with the naked eye. In June, farmers implant broodlac, or the mamas, onto new tree branches. Their babies will hatch and spread out. As they suck the tree's sap, the females secrete an amber-colored resin. When it hits the air, it hardens, creating a protective nest. This is what becomes valuable shellac. This curved knife, called a daoli, is the most important tool for farmers like Turlen Dan. She climbs up to 20 feet to reach the small branches where the insects grow. She has about 100 of these lac-infested trees.
पेड़ चढ़ने से डर भी लगता है कि इधर फिसल जाए तो हम नीचे ना गिर जाए वो सब को भी थोड़ा सोच के चढ़ना पड़ता है.
It can take as many as 300,000 insects to make just 1 kilo of shellac. That's where the lac insect derives its name, from ek lak, meaning 100,000 in Hindi. Turlen can harvest that in 1 day, but it takes her 2 more to scrape it all off. She uses the same daoli.
पेड़ की कटाई छटाई करने के लिए हम लोग को दाउली का इस्तेमाल करते हैं.
She sells the lac to a local market, earning $7 a kilo. That's where Manoj Soraogi buys it. His factory sources raw lac from 4 states and processes over 500 metric tons a year. It all starts with crushing and washing, which is the most challenging part. Cleaning the lac for too long could lower the yield.
और अगर आपने कम वॉश कर दिया तो आपकी क्वालिटी बहुत इंफीरियर हो जाएगी. इसीलिए उसको आपको पूरा मेंटेन करने के लिए परफेक्ट वॉश करना चाहिए.
Then the lac has to dry to prevent mold and make it easier to extract the resin. During winters, Manoj's staff leaves the lac in this yard for an hour and a half. In hotter months, it takes about half the time. They have to watch it closely, since too much heat can turn it black. That's considered low quality and won't fetch as much money.
ज़्यादा हीट पड़ने से क्या है कि वो जमने लग जाता है. इसीलिए इसको तुरंत ही उठा के ज़्यादा लेबर लगा के तुरंत उठाना पड़ता है.
Next, the workers assign it one of 4 grades, depending on the size. They'll remove small sticks by hand. This machine separates any remaining stones from the mix.
अगर इसको क्लीनिंग नहीं करेंगे तो इसमें काफ़ी ज़्यादा इम्प्यूरिटीज हो जाएंगी. मेल्ट करने में भी प्रॉब्लम आता है, इसलिए इसको क्लीनिंग करना जरूरी है.
The workers put the lac into a cloth tube that looks kind of like a giant sock. They twist it so the mixture moves toward the kiln and spin it until the lac melts. The saw collects any leftover rocks or sticks that might have snuck in. They spend at least 6 hours a day spinning the tube and stoking the fire that burns at 167 degrees Fahrenheit. In the summer, it can get up to 113 degrees in this factory. These symmetrical circles are called button shellac, which are used to make bangles. Workers also spread it across this tool, called a pipa, to make sheet shellac. They use a palm leaf to spread it out evenly. The workers remove it once it's cooled. Then they stretch it out even more, using their hands, feet, and teeth. This is how shellac has been made for centuries.
ये जो है ये पूरा नेचुरल प्रोडक्ट है। उसका जो टेम्परेचर रहता है वो काफ़ी डाउन हो जाता है। उसमें से स्प्रेड जब करता है तो वो हार्मफुल कहीं भी नहीं रहता है कुछ भी।
They'll pull it to an even 5 foot by 5 foot square. These sheets will be used to polish candies, cashew nuts, and fruit. Machines have largely replaced the traditional hand-stretching method. This one presses out thin sheets, sort of like a pasta maker. It processes most of the factory's lac, making shellac 4 times faster than by hand stretching. The workers give it one quick tug and then rip it off. They'll hang it up to harden and cool, and then chop it into hair-thin pieces. These will stiffen into shards, exported around the world. Manoj can sell the refined shellac for almost double what he paid for it. Indonesia and the United States are his biggest customers. The US is also the world's largest importer, buying up roughly a fourth of all Indian shellac. It's been valued for 3,000 years for its versatility. One of shellac's earliest uses was as a rich crimson dye. The insect's excretions also made a strong glue and added a shiny, water-resistant finish to wood and leather. In medieval Europe, artists mixed it into paints. In the 1800s, it became the base of gramophone records before the invention of vinyl. Through the 1900s, it was a popular finish for wood paneling in American homes. It also made its way into pharmaceuticals, coating pills and tablets, and food, as a glossy glaze for candies, fruits, cakes, and nuts. Today, the global shellac industry is worth over $167 million, and more than half of the world's supply comes from India. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration allows it as a food-safe additive, as long as it's listed on the ingredients list as shellac or confectioner's glaze. It's in treats like Junior Mints, jelly beans, candy corn, and Whoppers. It's also often dissolved in alcohol and sprayed onto citrus fruit. The waxy coating wicks away moisture, extending the fruit's shelf life. And that gloss makes for a more eye-catching lemon on grocery store shelves. Thousands of people in Turlen's village depend on shellac for a living, but the price has fluctuated a lot. In 2022, Turlen could make $12 a kilo. Now the price is half that. So she started farming ducks for additional income. She also grows rice and vegetables. That's because raising the storied insects has gotten a lot harder, largely due to the climate crisis. Intensifying rainstorms have washed lac off tree branches and led to fungal infestations. More extreme heat is drying up the trees that are the insects' main food source.
समझ आने तक कि इसमें क्या करना है, कीड़े मर जा रहे हैं.
Vijay Kumar Vidu works for an NGO that helps farmers research why their insects are dying.
जहाँ पहले किसान इस तरह से अपने बारे में बताते थे कि जब मैं लाह का काट के लाता था तो पूरा घर भर जाता था. आज के समय में उन्होंने इसकी खेती कम की है।
His organization educates farmers on the benefits of using fungicides, which can increase lac production.
अभी जो पहले नेचुरल लॉ होने का ये था, अभी उसको बोल सकते हैं कि साइंटिफिक लॉ हो रहा है।
Armed with a little help from science, Indian lac producers are fighting to keep raising their amber insects for generations to come.
Every day, workers pack the walls of this mountain with powerful explosives, all to extract one thing: Himalayan pink salt.
कई दफ़ा धमाका मिसफायर हो जाता है, लेट हो जाता है, तो अंदर जाने से हादसा हो सकता है।
The Quarry mine in Pakistan has the largest pink salt deposits in the world. Some of these raw blocks weigh up to 800 kilos, too heavy to lift by hand. Most of the salt ships to Europe and the US, where it is often branded as a healthy product, selling for up to 30 times the price of regular white salt. But reports suggest that it has high levels of heavy metals and microplastics. Still, as the world's appetite for pink salt keeps growing, how is a single mountain range powering this global industry? Asif Mahmood gets his 3 sons ready for school every day before heading out to the mines that hold the coveted Himalayan pink salt.
और ऐसा ये हमारा ज़्यादातर काम इलाका के लोगों का यही है, आबाई काम है, तो शुरू से ही जहन में ये था कि मैंने कानकुनी करनी और वही कर रहा हूँ।
The salt doesn't actually come from the Himalayas, which are about 250 kilometers east of here, but from the lower altitude Potohar Plateau in Punjab province. With 2 decades of experience, Asif is now a supervisor responsible for the safety of the miners. Inside, about 40 kilometers of tunnels connect 17 levels that are divided into chambers.
कान के अंदर तो बिल्कुल घोप अंधेरा होता है जी।
First, experienced miners read the walls. They are looking for high-quality salt.
इंजीनियर्स जियोलॉजिकल सर्वे से और हमारे आबाओ अजदाद का जो दिया हुआ तजर्बा है, जिसमें दीवारों को थताना या लाइट के पास के जरिए नमक को चेक करना।
After finding the deposits, they start drilling holes about 4 feet deep and pack them with explosives using just their bare hands. A single spark or flame at this point could turn the chamber into an inferno. Then workers add the fuse wire, which snakes through the rock, giving them just enough time to clear the area. Asif moves away to another chamber, but he still hears the explosion loud and clear. After 30 minutes, they cautiously make their way back through the tunnels.
तो मैं अंदर जाके चेक करता हूँ कि कोई ब्लास्ट रह तो नहीं गया या कोई डला पत्थर दीवारों में अटका हुआ हो, तो उसे निशानदेही करते हैं। उसके बाद ही लेबर को कॉल दी जाती है कि अंदर आए और लोडिंग कर लें, जब तमाम खतरात लिमिट से ठीक हो जाते हैं तो।
Miners aren't allowed to extract everything. A lot of the rock is used for structural support, so the chambers don't collapse. It takes workers about 2 hours to load the tractor trolleys, mostly by hand. Every year, they harvest close to 400,000 tons of salt from the mountain range. But that's just a fraction of the reserves found here. Even at current extraction rates, this salt is expected to last for centuries. The Quebra salt mine is owned by the government, which leases out sections to private companies like Ittifaq Salt. Asif has worked with them since he was 20. The company pays him a salary of about 100,000 rupees a month or $350. That's above the average monthly wage for unskilled workers in this region.
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह मेरे लिए ये बहुत है और मेरी फैमिली की तमाम बुनियादी ज़रूरियात इससे पूरी हो रही हैं तो मैं मुतमईन हूँ.
In fact, locals like Asif have depended on the Quebra mine for generations. Geologists say the salt formed here around 600 million years ago, when ancient seas evaporated, leaving behind thick mineral deposits. Its signature pink hue comes from trace amounts of iron oxide, the same compound that makes rust red. The more iron it contains, the deeper the pink, so the salt can range from pale blush to dark red. Legend says that around 326 BC, during Alexander the Great's expedition to the Indian subcontinent, his horses uncovered the deposits after they began licking salty rocks along the trail. But industrial-scale mining started here in the 1870s, when the British colonized the region. Pakistan gained independence in 1947 and took ownership of the salt mines. But most of the work is done by private companies like Ittifaq Salt. They process the rocks at this factory in Lahore, about 280 kilometers away. Here, workers like Amir Aslam start their day by suiting up with protective gear.
Gloves होते हैं हमारे पास long, ठीक है, कैप होती है हमारे पास और goggles होते हैं हमारे पास. उससे हम महफूज रहते हैं.
First, workers evaluate the raw blocks and sort them by color. Then they check for any remaining gunpowder and chip it off. They also scan the rock for natural cracks. Some pieces can weigh up to 100 kilos, so Amir says they have to be handled with caution.
मैं 20 साल की एज में यहाँ पे आया था, थोड़ा सा लापरवाह था, तो मैंने उठाने की कोशिश की और मेरे पाँव पे गिर गया, तो मुझे चोट आ गई.
That's why workers cut down the largest slabs first. But as the size shrinks, their hands get closer to the blade, and the risk increases as the diamond-tipped edge slices through in seconds. Today they're working on an order for Himalayan salt lamps. They drill a hole in the center, which throws up salt fumes.
जब हम कटिंग शुरू करते हैं, पीस लेते हैं, पीस लेने से पहले हम पानी उसका शावर छोड़ देते हैं ताकि कटर पे जब पीस जाए और कुछ जो फ्यूम है वो ना उड़े.
Over time, those particles can collect in the lungs, making it harder to breathe.
तो हम मास्क मुंह पे पहन लेते हैं, जो बाकी बचते हैं थोड़े बहुत वो मास्क से कंट्रोल हो जाते हैं.
To stay safe, new hires also have to undergo 3 months of training.
इस किस्म के काम में अच्छा होने के लिए दयानतदार, ईमानदार बंदे का होना और मेहनती होना, हार्ड वर्किंग जो है ना वो बहुत ज़रूरी है.
These days, the factory has even automated some parts of the process to increase production. It can now handle nearly 350 metric tons of salt a day, the weight of a fully loaded Boeing 747 jumbo jet. And demand has only been skyrocketing over the years. For everything from bath salts to lamps used in aromatherapy and edible salt. The finished products are stacked, wrapped, boxed, labeled, and shipped around the world to more than 80 countries. In some US grocery stores, a container of Himalayan pink salt sells for about $10, but a much larger jar of regular table salt can cost just $1. It's often more costly because of how it's branded, as a more natural and healthier alternative to regular table salt. Influencers claim it can regulate blood sugar, improve sleep, and detoxify the body. But scientists say there's no solid evidence behind those claims. In fact, one recent study shows that Himalayan pink salt contains higher amounts of microplastics than other rock salts, with the contamination happening at the processing and packaging stage. Other reports show that it contains heavy metals like lead, mercury, and arsenic that can be toxic even in small quantities.
I made a shocking discovery about pink Himalayan salt.
On top of that, there are also many fake products out there that add pink dye to regular salt and sell it at premium prices.
It looks like foundation that I can put on my face.
Still, the people who work with this salt continue to believe in those healing properties.
मुझे 20 साल हो गए यहाँ पे काम करते हुए। मैंने गुलाबी नमक के बारे में ये जाना है कि ये इंसानी जिस्म पे मुस्बत असरात डालता है। काफ़ी बीमारियों का इसमें इलाज है।
Since 2018, the global market for Himalayan salt has grown steadily and is expected to reach almost 700 million in 2030. But Pakistan's annual exports are valued at only a fraction of that. That's because most of the profits in this industry are made later in the supply chain, when the salt is turned into products. And for years, Pakistan wasn't actually doing that. It lacked the equipment to grind and refine it to international standards. So exporting raw salt became an easier option. Most of it was shipped at low prices to India, where it was processed and sold to Western markets as a premium product, sometimes even labeled as made in India. Pakistan saw little of the profit. But in 2019, political tensions between the two countries escalated over control of the Kashmir region. Pakistan suspended bilateral trade with India, cutting off a major export route for raw salt. So local companies started processing the salt themselves. But those early workshops weren't as modern or safe as they are today. We filmed at one 6 years ago. There, we saw some workers handling the same sharp equipment without gloves. Fine salt fumes filled the air, coating the machines, the floors, and even the workers' faces. Not many of them wore masks. Despite the risks, many workers still value this job. Because Kevra isn't just a salt mine, it's a national attraction, bringing in about 250,000 tourists every year. A source of pride for many who work in the industry.
उस ब्लॉक से जो मुख्तलिफ शेप्स की प्रोडक्ट्स बनती हैं तो पूरी दुनिया में जाती है, तो इस बात से हमें खुशी होती है।
Meanwhile, at the mine, Asif's 8-hour shift is finally over. So he bonds with co-workers over a cup of tea and a melancholy song.
अजनबी शहर के अजनबी रास्ते मेरी तन्हाई पर मुस्कुराते रहे.
But his spirits are anything but defeated. Tomorrow, he looks forward to another day inside this mine.
मुस्कुराते रहे.
मुझे कुछ ना कुछ यहाँ पे नया सीखने को मिलता है, एडवेंचर है, तो मुझे इसमें मज़ा आता है. हमारा जो गुलाबी हिमालयन पिंक साल्ट है, ये पूरी दुनिया में इस्तेमाल हो रहा है. मुझे खुशी है कि मैं इस टीम का हिस्सा हूँ, ये और पाकिस्तान का नाम रोशन कर रहा है.
These men in Colombia descend into mines that could collapse with one wrong move. About 70% of the country's gold is still dug out in informal mines like these.
Muchos de nuestros compañeros han perdido la vida, otras personas han perdido sus miembros.
But the danger isn't just underground. the precious metal ends up funding armed groups. In fact, gold is now their biggest source of income. To stop this trade, authorities are blowing up illegal mines one by one. Yet demand for gold is soaring, especially in the United States.
As the #1 destination for Colombian gold, the US is involved. We're talking billions and billions of dollars a year in dirty money.
So how did gold become more lucrative than cocaine for Colombia's most dangerous criminals? And if it's so tainted, why are countries still buying it? Marmato village in the Colombian Andes clings to what's known as the Mountain of Gold. Here, 4,300 feet above sea level, families have mined the precious metal for over 500 years.
Para esta comunidad, lo es todo.
37-year-old James Rotavista grew up on this mountain.
Cuando era niño, siempre pensé tener mi propia empresa minera. Creo que dentro del pensamiento de casi todos los marmateños es esa.
Centuries of digging have left many tunnels mostly empty. So miners go deeper than their forefathers, down 2,000 feet. Where groundwater weakens support beams fast.
Anteriormente pues se hacía con madera, hoy todavía se conserva.
The men follow what they call veins that snake through the rocks. They change color depending on the minerals mixed in. The walls that shimmer hide the gold.
Entonces, cuando uno encuentra una veta con oro, pues uno normalmente siempre trata de aprovechar ese dinero para impulsar el estudio de sus hijos.
Today, the men are betting on this vein.
También tenemos caliche, que nosotros conocemos.
Caliche.
Caliche. Es esta veta de color blanco. Pues esta vemos que tiene un espesor muy grande. Y pues nos sirve más porque más carga arrancamos con una descarga o con una detonación.
They start by drilling holes to place explosives. But Marmato's tunnels are full of old ones that never went off and have killed some of his colleagues years later.
Personas que en algún momento hemos estado dialogando como lo estamos haciendo tú y yo en este momento y al cabo de 15, 20 minutos la persona ya no está.
Once they light the fuse, they have just a few minutes to get as far as they can from the blast, which emits poisonous carbon monoxide.
Con el propósito de que los gases no vayan a quitar la vida de una persona.
When the dust settles, the men go back in.
Ahí subimos aquí con mucho cuidado. Aquí tenemos el mineral, miren, aquí está revuelto con pirita y está revuelto con cuarzo y otros minerales. Entonces lo que vamos a hacer es que vamos a clasificar de la mejor manera el mineral.
He fills a sack with about 55 pounds of ore, the rocks that contain the gold.
Y te mide.
Es un pedacito.
De una altura muy alta. Lo mata.
Lo puede dar.
Sí.
Y si no lo mata, lo puede dar cuadrapléjico si le pega la columna.
This mine and all the underground minerals in it are owned by the Colombian government, which issues permits. But to qualify, workers need to meet some standards, including using safer machinery for extraction. James's team can't afford that, so authorities can stop them from mining at any time.
La verdad, la incertidumbre siempre va a estar. Que el miedo en los mineros siempre va a estar, es algo cotidiano.
James's team of 60 men work together to load up the carts.
Los riesgos que corremos, por ejemplo, en cuanto al transporte en el coche, que es la parte de sufrir hernias, sufrir alguna desviación de la columna, porque los coches pues tienen un peso.
Pero aquí adentro hemos aprendido a ser una familia, a protegernos, a ayudarnos, porque nosotros como mineros recordamos algo muy importante, y es que la vida se puede ir en cualquier momento.
The state requires every operation to have its own rescue team. But artisanal mines here rarely do.
En Marmato la accidentalidad es diaria.
55-year-old Jose Gallego worked in a mine for 22 years. But a close call with death motivated him to join a volunteer rescue team.
Esté pendiente que tenemos una emergencia.
Cuando nos haces un llamado de emergencia, a veces no nos brinda la información adecuada, ¿no?
Jose says they're the only first responders in Marmato. They all share a single rescue truck.
Mi papá nos inculcó siempre en ayudar cada vez que se pueda. Y lentamente me fui enamorando de este cuento.
There's just one road through town. And every minute counts.
Y es muy frustrante cuando en situaciones de rescate no llegamos a tiempo, porque pues a veces las distancias, el tráfico a veces se nos complica.
It takes them almost half an hour to get to the highest point the car can reach. They need to hike the rest of the way.
¿Por acá no es? ¿Por dónde? Por ahí. ¿Por acá?
Today, they reached the mine in near record time, only to find out a young miner had dropped 420 feet. That's about the height of a 40-story building. Blanca Rodas joined the team 11 years ago. But even she's not trained for this kind of mission.
Yo no sé bajar a una lumbrera, usted ya tiene que ir a sacar a 2 personas.
Both the miners and the rescuers are on edge as time ticks by.
Para nosotros pagan la asociación, para nosotros nos dan un peso, a nosotros nos dan un peso de asociación, no nos dan nada. ¿Sabe cómo pasamos, señor? Nosotros muchas veces en bomberos, con agua y con pan, y eso nadie lo sabe.
Today, all she and the team can do is wait for other miners to retrieve the man from the shaft.
A nuestra medida está respirando, ¿no?
¿Sí? ¿Ya sacaron?
No.
Y está complicada la sacar, muchacho. Porque si entramos bajo riesgo de nosotros, la vida de nosotros. Entonces, ese es el problema.
After 2 hours, the miners finally carried the man out. But it was too late to save him.
Pues cuando no somos capaces de preservar una vida, a pesar de nuestro esfuerzo, eso nos parte de nosotros del alma.
The team drives the miner to the nearest hospital, where his family is waiting. Gallego has repeatedly asked the government for funding, but he says he's barely received enough to pay the team a modest wage.
Y desafortunadamente, pues, ahora a nivel Colombia, si no es con el apalancamiento de un político o con dádivas, esto aquí no funciona. Y eso la verdad me duele, porque veo que la gente no es empática con la labor que nosotros realizamos.
For Blanca, the emotional toll of a failed mission never goes away.
No, nosotros no estamos enseñados, nosotros somos de carne y hueso. Afecta mucho porque yo ya perdí un hijo y sé que es perder un hijo. Y sé que leen una noticia a uno de que un hijo está muerto o que su esposa está muerta.
But even outside these mines, the risks young men in the state face are growing. Colombia's gold-rich regions have become hotspots for the country's most powerful cartels and rebel groups. Historically, they relied mainly on cocaine to finance their operations. But recent crackdowns on drug trafficking pushed them to explore other revenue sources. Julia Yansura tracks how dirty money enters the global financial system.
The drug trafficking and criminal organizations we're seeing in Colombia today are sophisticated organizations that are relying on different income streams. So gold has become one of those income streams.
In 2013, gold officially surpassed cocaine as their biggest source of revenue. And over the past decade, inflation and trade wars have continued to push prices to record highs.
The price of cocaine has sort of stalled out. That's due to an overproduction of cocaine. Compare that to the price of gold, which is just incredible astronomical growth.
Now, hundreds of mines operate under criminal networks, which experts estimate rake in billions of dollars annually. The Colombian government has formed a special task force to wipe out criminal operations, but policy analysts say that's also an outdated approach.
I think it's the myth that we can solve this problem by sending out police and military. They will blow up just heavy machinery used in illegal mining. And within 1 hour of the yellow machinery being blown up, they're already seeing new yellow machinery being transported to the zone. There's gotta be a better way to do this.
In this fight between the government and criminal groups, local miners like Diego Jaramillo often get caught in the crossfire.
Todos sentimos miedo. Entonces, queremos mostrarles que somos gente honrada, trabajadora, con muchas ganas de seguir con la minería.
Diego has been mining for decades here in Segovia, the country's main gold mining hub. But these days, cartels often coerce miners like him into selling their ore or joining their ranks.
Entonces nos están criminando, nos están involucrando con otras cosas, donde vemos gente que solo trabajamos.
Diego began mining here at just 14, along with his friends.
Nosotros ya sabemos cómo andan las vetas, del papá nos enseñó a nosotros, ya nosotros les enseñamos a los hijos.
Indigenous tribes started digging for gold here at least 1,000 years ago, to use it in cultural and spiritual rituals. But in the 1500s, Spanish colonists seized mines across the country and brought in foreign enslaved people to work in them. Nearly 300 years later, Colombia gained independence from the Spanish, with help from the British, who also claimed some of the mines. Still, artisanal workers kept chipping away in areas where no one controlled mining rights. Then, in the 1990s, Colombia made a push to attract foreign companies by giving them exclusive licenses for huge swaths of land. This area, where Diego's been digging for 30 years, is now on the turf of a company called Quintana. But he mines here anyway.
Aquí trabajamos porque el dueño de este título es muy lejos. Aquí no viene. Entonces nosotros aprovechamos y trabajamos sur.
Most of the gold in this mine is long gone, but he still looks for scraps, because they're especially valuable today. Gold prices reached an all-time record of nearly $5,600 in early 2026, even though most small-scale miners end up selling their gold for 70% of the full market value. They still make about 10 times the $22 daily minimum wage in Colombia. Diego, for example, often collects enough ore over 2 days to earn $500.
Entonces seguimos insistiéndole a esas vetas y buscando la suerte.
Once he's gathered as much as he can carry, Diego brings it to a processor a few miles away. This one is independent, but many others are operated by armed groups. Diego dumps his ore into this barrel and adds water to it. He also adds mercury, which sticks to the gold, making it easier to isolate. But it's extremely toxic over time. Still, miners continue using it without any precautions.
Sin mercurio no hacemos nada. Entonces ese es el miedo. Pero así que tenga secuelas del mercurio, no las tengo.
Men hit the barrels to help break up the ore. And inside, these steel balls grind it, making it easier to free the gold. Water carries lighter minerals away, while gold is heavy, so it settles at the bottom. At this point, the mercury is still stuck to the gold, so the nuggets are heated to burn that off. This also melts away any natural clues, indicating where the gold came from. And experts say that's a major draw for armed groups, because that makes it easier to launder the gold before it leaves the country.
You might be thinking, illicit gold, it's going to be smuggled. Not really. Documentation is falsified as though it's coming from a legal mine, and that's a really tricky thing for law enforcement to deal with.
The government does track how much gold is exported. In 2024, it shipped $4.1 billion worth. But that's far more than its licensed mines said they produced, meaning the rest came from illegal or informal sites.
For Colombia, it's been really hard to get data, but we know the majority is illegally sourced. We're talking at least $2 billion a year. A lot of it is exported as though it were a totally legal product, just like you would export sweatshirts or Coca-Cola.
Most of the gold Colombia exports ends up in the US, which in 2024 imported $1.5 billion worth.
Most Americans perceive this as this remote problem that has nothing to do with us, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. As the #1 destination for Colombian gold, the US is involved.
Julia says Miami is a major port of entry. Officials have seized illicit gold there in the past.
That's one airport. That suggests a lot of this dirty gold is ending up here, either through formal export processes or through travelers who bring gold in their backpack or whatnot, fly into the airport. They're not necessarily going to go to jail. Gold is not an illegal product. If you have those same guys transporting a bag of cocaine, if they get caught, they're going to go to jail. So that makes the risks of doing business a lot lower.
Once it enters the US, experts say it's laundered again through shell companies.
We've had pretty weak money laundering policies, particularly with regard to anonymous shell companies. That continues to be a big vulnerability in our system.
Now, Colombia is trying to tackle the problem at its root by giving artisanal miners like Juan Camilo better opportunities. For the past 2 years, he's worked for a local small-scale mining company in Segovia that sells its ore to a larger Canadian company called Aris. It has partnered with them under certain conditions.
Ya ellos le van haciendo visita a la mina y le van diciendo que va mejorando. Lo que fue las oficinas, el mejoramiento de ventilación, las ramadas, la carretera, el acceso, todo eso, los baños. Eso es un proceso, porque usted sabe que todo ya es económicamente. Entonces vamos dando.
They go down a shaft that drops down 550 feet, but no one wears a harness.
Este desplazamiento lo hago diario entre 5 y 6 veces, 4 y 5 veces para arriba y para abajo. Y eso mantengo es como un yo-yo. Yo ya le boté como que el miedo a esto.
Y así nos criaron y así nos vamos a morir, ¿será? Porque para que los hijos de nosotros no tengan pues que entrar acá.
Miners have installed new equipment in here, like this pulley system.
¡Mario! Hágame el favor y le da.
3 es para subir, 2 para bajar y 1 para parar. 7, un accidente. Terminero, unas ganas de salir adelante.
Volando, ¿a quién tiramos para la entrevista?
Juan's income isn't dependent on how much he collects. He's paid a steady salary by the small-scale mining company. It sells the ore exclusively to Aris, which provides a better rate for the gold than other buyers. Even though he loves this job, Juan says it's taken many of his friends. And he wants those who will someday wear this gold to know its true cost.
Que detrás de lo que él tiene, que tiene oro, no sabe cuántas familias vienen luchando día a día para extraer el oro.
At the end of the day, what's most important for Juan is that his colleagues stay safe and that he can keep mining beside them.
Pues la experiencia de antes y de ahora es como lo mismo, simplemente que entre comillas éramos ilegales, entonces, pero siempre ha sido la misma labor.
We also went to an official Aris mine that is highly mechanized. Carlos Mario supervises a team here. He briefs the men before they head in for the day. This rail car takes them 6 levels down. In this mine, machines do most of the heavy lifting. Robotic arms drill holes for the dynamite.
Aproximadamente se lleva 60 barrenos. Estos barrenos son de 12 pies. ¿Tienes metro ahí? No tienes metro. Métalo.
But Carlos's team mines where machines can't.
Mineral.
They rely on techniques they learned as artisanal miners. Eris supplies the protective gear and trains the men to check the walls before drilling.
Mucha transferencia de conocimiento.
Working with Eris, they earn a steady wage of about $100 a day, roughly 5 times the minimum wage in Colombia. Informal mining can pay more on a good day, but it's a gamble.
Si no es atractivo, no van a dejar de ser informal, no van a dejar de arriesgar su vida. Estamos apuntando al paradigma del minero, de la forma de pensar.
This kind of cooperation between Eris and local miners took years to secure.
Y siempre les diciendo que cuidarnos todos. De nada tiene validez esto si nos morimos en la mina. No puede seguir pasando esto. Una vida no se reemplaza por ninguna cantidad de onzas.
All the material the men collect ends up here. The company processes about 2,000 tons of ore a day. It's separated into piles, depending on which mine it came from.
Esta alimentación consiste en el proceso de trituración de nuestras minas con el producto de la minería externa.
The ore is ground into a fine grain. Next, workers add chemicals, called collectors, that bind to the gold and make it repel water.
Esta espuma que rebosa en estas celdas es el concentrado de oro y plata.
At this stage, the gold is still mixed with other minerals, so this machine adds cyanide to dissolve it. The waste rock stays solid and filters out. A plant like this one recovers about 96% of the gold from the ore, far more than informal operations.
Esta área es la más importante para recuperar todo el oro.
To recover it, they add zinc, which sticks to the cyanide, leaving the gold behind. The company chooses women for this part of the job because they're seen as more detail-oriented. One is always stationed here, watching so that no gold gets lost.
Y ha hecho que han incrementado nuestra eficiencia en esta área. Incrementar 0.5% genera mucho valor agregado.
Eris also took us to its foundry, the final stage in the process.
Este es el proceso de fundición.
A giant oven heats the refined gold to over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Just standing here for a few minutes could sear the men's skin if they didn't wear these suits that are designed to reflect heat. It takes 2 hours to melt one batch of gold.
Aquí podemos ver un lingote.
They let the bars cool and harden. But these aren't all pure gold. Sometimes there's silver mixed in.
Aquí hay una gran diferencia. Pueden notar que tenemos barras de un color y barras de otro color.
The lighter bars are the ones that contain more silver. Darker bars hold more gold, making them higher carat and pricier. The highest you can find on the market is 24 karat gold, which is 99.9% pure. But it's soft. That's why it's mostly used for ceremonial jewelry, not everyday wear. Or in the bars that back currencies. Some gold goes as low as 8 carats, which is just a third pure. It's tougher because of the added metals, but it loses its shine and color. Each bar is marked with a unique serial number that allows suppliers and buyers to trace it. Before it's sold and shipped off, Eris stores them here for safekeeping.
Esta es nuestra bóveda principal. Por medidas de seguridad, la bóveda tiene cámaras de seguridad.
Eris says it sells its bars mainly to European countries. Today, demand for this metal is booming. Many people hold on to it as a recession-proof investment. It's also increasingly being used in modern technology, like the GPUs that run AI and smartphones. These days, consumers are pressuring tech companies to reveal their supply chains. And that's been challenging for Colombia, as reports have exposed the role gold plays in funding criminal groups. Now, many big mining companies are doubling down to prove theirs is sourced ethically and legally.
Amante Padre misericordioso Dios, te doy gracias, Señor, en este momento.
Back in Marmato, James Rotavista is considering working with Eris too, to earn a more stable income for his wife and 2 children.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien, mami, ya me voy.
Until then, he wants people to buy his gold, without criminalizing the only job he's ever loved.
Esperan que ese oro va de personas honestas, que tienen el propósito de sobrevivir las vidas, para que esas personas también puedan lucir ese precioso material que lo amamos también.
Aquí tenemos la fe de los marmateños, San Antonio. A veces le dan billetes, lo raro es que los billetes de tierra.
These sandstone mines are killing tens of thousands of men. They're constantly breathing in clouds of toxic dust that cause a deadly lung disease. Most workers don't make it past the age of 40. Annu has worked here his whole life, and so did his father, but it destroyed his lungs. To pay for medical bills, workers have to borrow money from their employer, but they don't earn enough to pay off these loans. So they keep working here, even though this dust is suffocating them now too. Activists say this is a form of modern-day slavery.
वो बोल नहीं सकता क्योंकि कर्ज लिया है तो बॉन्डेड है ही.
But as global demand grows for this sandstone, this work is creating an entire village of widows who are now trying to pay off loans of those who are long gone.
घरवालों में बीमारी हो गई, लड़की ने बीमारी हो गई, हमारे 2 भाई आंखों ने बीमारी हुई.
So why are conditions at these mines so deadly? And how can families get away from a job that's killing them as long as they're chained by debt? Just a few miles from the sandstone quarries of Rajasthan lies this village. Almost every single resident here is a widow. Years of breathing dust at the quarries took their husbands' lives. Now they have also turned to sandstone to support their families. Like 27-year-old Bimla.
मारे तरीके हूँ कहूँ जनो तो बच्चों पापा कहूँ न हिके के पापा जेड़ पापा सो गायब बाप गए.
Now, the women spend their days chipping away at these smaller sandstone pieces, shaping them into tiles, while the men work in the heart of the quarry. Over $160 billion worth of unmined sandstone can be found in Rajasthan. The men start by cutting stones from the walls of this pit. They drill holes about a foot apart and create outlines with paint so they know where to eventually cut the rock.
दिल मशीन चलेगी, कंपी उड़ेगी, वो जाएगी शरीर में, दाने दाने पैदा होंगे, उस वजह से बीमारी हो जाएगी.
No one wears a mask because temperatures here can hit nearly 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're constantly exposed to this fine dust. It builds up deep in the lungs. The body tries to wall it off with scar tissue, but that hardens the lungs and over time makes it impossible for oxygen to pass through. That's called silicosis, a deadly disease.
मेरे पिताजी की बीमारी ऐसे हुई और मेरे की भी ऐसे होगी.
To cover his father's care, the family borrowed money from a local bank and the quarry supervisor. Both charge interest. Annu was trying to pay this off when he got hurt. He was breaking a slab just like these workers when a rock dropped and shattered his foot.
2014 में मेरा एक्सीडेंट हुआ था जब मेरे पिताजी बीमार थे और 2014 में ऑपरेशन हुआ तो मेरे मम्मी ने 1.5 लाख का लोन लिया था तो मैंने यहाँ लोन की वजह से यहाँ मतलब आना शुरू हुआ वापस.
Today he says he owes 125,000 rupees or about $1,380. And paying it off has been hard because he earns just $5 a day, not nearly enough to keep up with expenses and make loan payments.
ये भी काम है तो कैसे आज़ाद होगा? कोई आज़ाद का तो सपना भी भूल जाइए.
We couldn't track down the operator of Annu's quarry, but another mine owner we contacted didn't answer any of our phone calls. Most workers live a couple of miles from the quarry in Bhilbasti neighborhood. Including 32-year-old Hira Ram, who has been sick for 8 years. His 26-year-old wife Shayati looks after him. And silicosis patients often grow painfully thin because they lose their appetite.
रोटी बिल्कुल मुंडे में नहीं घालता है जो आइयों करते करते थोड़ा गुण की खाए जन तो शरीर में गाढ़ आए नहीं जनो चक्कर आवे करो जो बुखार आवे तेज तो
To afford treatment, Shayati had to send their children away to live in government hostels. It's a sacrifice she's learned to live with.
छोटी शादी करी जीना बहुत बुरा लगता है पर जाऊं का तो ही ना अभी हम निकल दम कर जाऊं पर मजदूरी कर नहीं कर खाऊं कम पेट में इलाज कटू कराऊं.
Shayati's neighbor Sapna is trapped in the same cycle. Her husband died 5 years ago from the same disease that's killing Hira. But before he passed, he'd borrowed money, forcing Sapna into stonework. To pay off his loans, she had to borrow more, about 500,000 rupees or $5,500. This time from her boss at the quarry. But he charges 70% interest, and payments are due every 15 days. Meanwhile, as a woman, Sapna is paid about half of what the men make, just 300 rupees a day or about $3. Not nearly enough to raise 4 children on her own. Sapna's daughter came to work with her until the dust took her life too.
उन्हें आपकी बाप की बीमारी लागू रही है ना लड़की नहीं माँ बीमारी लाग मई खत्म हो गई.
She was only 20. And now Sapna also has silicosis. But she still works when she can.
बाहर जाने की कोशिश तो करी पर मैं ये नहीं है कि मेरी जिंदगी खराब हो गई मैं पत्थर तोड़ तोड़ तो मेरे बच्चे रे जिंदगी खराब हो जाला जब मैं क्यों वो कता पड़े नहीं बाहर.
Since losing her loved ones, Sapna has borrowed more, including money to pay for her family's funerals. She says she's still in debt, but doesn't know how much she owes. The women rarely meet the mine owners, who are allegedly wealthy locals with political ties. They lease the land from the government that owns it and sometimes use false names to escape accountability. They hire contractors to recruit workers, run the day-to-day operations, and negotiate loans.
उतरे ही नहीं तो कर्जा उतरे के घर क्या मेरे को काम हुए नहीं है तो ये कर्जा तो यही रहे लम्बाते तो.
In this village, Sapna is surrounded by other widows like her. Radhabai began working at the quarry in 1983. A few years later, silicosis from mining killed her husband.
विधवा कहते तो बुरा तो लगेगा ना, विधवा का नाम ही बेकार है। पति ना औरत का क्या जीना, पर फिर भी बच्चे के लिए जीती है वो।
The 60-year-old still mourns the partner she lost 29 years ago.
पति तो बढ़िया थे मेरे, इतने अच्छे थे। पति के लिए तो कहने के लिए कुछ है ही नहीं। मेरे पति तो भगवान राम ही थे।
To get by, Radha works in the quarry. She makes about 30 tiles a day and earns just 30 cents. Meanwhile, her boss can sell a single tile for up to 60 cents, twice what Radha makes in an entire day.
मेरे माँ बाप ने मेरे को पढ़ाया लिखाया भी नहीं। मेरा नाम जरूर लिख लेती हूँ आधा, क्या काम कर सकती हूँ। सपना तो पूरा पढ़ने के बाद में होता।
The widows aren't safe at the mines. They say they're constantly harassed by male workers. In many villages in India, they're believed to bring bad luck and are often shunned by their own families at occasions like weddings and baby showers. In ancient rituals, some Hindu families even burned widows alive at their husbands' funerals. The practice, called sati, was officially banned in 1829. But the stigma still exists.
बुरा तो लगे ना, बुरा तो बहुत बुरा लगेगा, ऐसा लगेगा जहर खा के मर जाए।
It's not just men and women who are trapped in these jobs, but children too. Even though child labor has been banned in India since 2016, kids above the age of 14 are legally allowed to work, but not in hazardous jobs like mining. Still, sometimes the children who end up here are even younger.
जो 10-12 साल के भी है तो वो भी आ जाते हैं, एक दो ट्रॉली भरते हैं तो उसको 100-150 रुपये मिल जाते हैं, तो उसके मम्मी पापा के सारे वो बीमारी की वजह से वो थोड़ा घर खर्चा चलता है।
Anu never married because of his debt, and he lives with his parents. Today, he's meeting his cousin Navraji Ram for a cup of tea. Navraji was diagnosed 4 years ago with silicosis too.
दूसरी जगह मैं जो काम पे गया था, अगर 15-20 मिनट आधा घंटा ज़्यादा काम कर लेता हूँ लोड लगा के, तो वो सांस फूलने लग जाती है, तो वो मना कर लेते हैं, भाई मैं ऐसा आदमी मुझे नहीं सही है।
Navraji has also taken loans to send his children to school.
तो वो बच्चे पढ़ रहे हैं, उनको जोर लगा के पढ़ाना, मैं पढ़ाऊँगा उसे जोर लगा के पढ़ाऊँगा, लेकिन खान का काम तो बिल्कुल नहीं है। स्कूल छोड़ने के बाद खान में गया ना, तो उस दिन से मैंने आज़ादी देखी नहीं है, आज़ादी क्या होती है।
He prays he can keep working for a few more years so he can pay off his debt.
वो भी सुबह शाम आ जाता है, मेरा कर्जा कब दोगे वापस, तो उसके भी टेंशन हो जाती है, अब मैं कर्जा कहाँ से लाऊंगा, मैं पैसा इतना, मैं बहुत ज़्यादा दिमाग माइंड ख़राब हो जाता है। आवाज़ उठाने डरते हैं, लेकिन क्या कर रहे हैं।
To save money, Navraji has given up on treatment. But many miners get checkups at a nearby hospital.
अगर वो 10-15 साल काम कर लेते, उसके बाद वो काम करने लायक ही नहीं रह पाते। उनको इवन चलने में भी उनको सांस लेने में दिक्कत आती है।
For decades, doctors were misdiagnosing many patients with tuberculosis, which is treatable. But workers kept dying. So in 2009, the Rajasthan State Human Rights Commission stepped in and discovered it was actually silicosis, a slow but certain killer. No one survives the disease.
वही हम बस उसको सिम्टोमेटिक केयर्स दे सकते हैं, है ना। प्रॉपर वो तो कैसे ला पाएगा उसकी प्रॉपर फंक्शनिंग तो।
Independent estimates suggest that today there are about 800,000 cases of silicosis across Rajasthan. And even though this disease is a worker's life sentence, the rock they dig up travels far and wide. Sandstone is easier to carve than other rocks, so it has been used in India for centuries to build fortresses and palaces which draw hundreds of thousands of tourists each year. It was even used to construct the president's house. The state's capital, Jaipur, is famous for its sandstone structures. In 2025, about $60 million worth of sandstone left the country. Many exports are bound for the US, Europe, and the UK, where it's used to decorate bathrooms, driveways, and cobbled roads. In the US, a single square foot tile can range from $10 to $30, which is much more expensive than concrete. But before it's exported, the stone moves through a long chain of middlemen, erasing any link to specific quarries.
डीलर यूरोप या यूके में बैठा है, क्या उसके पास कोई ऑप्शन है? वो भी उतना ही वल्नरेबल है. बोल ही नहीं सकता है कि उसका पत्थर वहाँ जहाँ से आया वहाँ पे कोई एक्सप्लॉइटेड औरत नहीं थी.
Rana Sen Gupta runs a local NGO called Mine Labour Protection Campaign, or MLPC.
बड़े बिजनेसेस वो ये ऐसा स्टोन चाहते हैं जिसमें किसी तरह का एक्सप्लॉइटेशन नहीं है. पर एट द सेम टाइम गवर्नमेंट जिसके थ्रू ये माइनिंग करवा रहा है वहाँ गवर्नमेंट ये एश्योर नहीं कर रहा है कि एक्सप्लॉइटेशन नहीं हो. तो ऐसे में जो कंज्यूमर भी है वो चाह के भी एक अच्छा सा प्रोडक्ट नहीं ले सकता जिसमें कोई ब्लड स्ट्रेन्स नहीं हो.
Rana says it's hard for the government to keep track of conditions as there are over 30,000 mines cutting across Rajasthan and just one state agency to keep watch. So the NGO fills critical gaps while looking out for workers and widows.
राम राम विमला जी, क्या करो?
ठीक है.
ठीक हो?
मैं रोनी है भगवान बरादरी नाच दो करी.
मैं यहाँ पे आपका वो NHRC फाइल करनी है ना, तो उसके लिए आया हूँ. तो वो आप मुझे डॉक्यूमेंट्स वगैरह दे दीजिए तो वो NHRC लग जाएगी आपकी. ठीक है, कुछ आपके लिए हेल्प हो जाएगी.
The state is legally required to pay women a one-time sum of 300,000 rupees or about $3,300 if their husbands die of silicosis. But often, there are no employment contracts, and many women are too afraid to officially report their deaths.
परवार है नहीं. और आजकल अनपढ़ रहेगा. जान जे कागज बताओ के बाजी 1000 रुपये लो.
About 85% of women here can't read or write. Activists say mine operators take advantage of that when they issue their loans.
इसके पीछे वो ओनर का एक बहुत बड़ा दूरगामी उसका एक विजन रहता है कि इसको मैं हर वक्त अपने एक्सप्लॉइट कर सकता हूँ. अगर आप देखेंगे ये कॉन्टेम्प्रेरी फॉर्म्स ऑफ स्लेवरी है. कोई चेन से जंजीर से बैठ के तो बांधा नहीं है लेकिन वो निकल भी नहीं सकता वहाँ से. और जो कर्ज में डूबा हुआ है बीमार है उसको दूसरा कौन लेगा, उसको वहाँ से रिलीफ कौन देगा?
By law, the state should give sick workers a one-time payment of about 100,000 rupees or $1,000. And government data shows that from 2022 to 2025, more than 118,000 people in Rajasthan applied for the aid, saying they had the disease. But the state only certified about 6,000 cases and paid out just 5,000. Experts say the government routinely rejects claims to dodge responsibility and limit how much it has to pay.
अगर आप माइनिंग डिपार्टमेंट में जाएंगे तो वो भी बोलेगा कि लेबर मेरा सब्जेक्ट नहीं है, और लेबर डिपार्टमेंट में जाएंगे तो वो भी बोलेगा मेरा सब्जेक्ट नहीं है. ऐसे में जाएंगे तो कहाँ जाएंगे? माइन ओनर्स जो है, माइनिंग इंडस्ट्री जो है, वो सरकार को कमा के देती है, और ये जो तकलीफ़ें मजदूरों को हो रही है उसमें सरकार का खर्च बढ़ जाता है. तो ऐसे में गवर्नमेंट अपने जो जहाँ से रेवेन्यू आ रहा है उसके तरफ अलाइंड होता है, न कि वर्कर्स की तरफ.
We emailed India's Ministry of Mines, its Labour Department, and Rajasthan's State Labour and Mining Departments, and called every number listed on their websites. 2 officials hung up on us when we started asking questions. Several of our calls went unanswered, and other numbers weren't in service, including the one for Rajasthan's silicosis help desk. Still, Rana says the state could save thousands in compensation if they focused on preventing the disease in the first place. He points to quarries around the world that use machinery, like wire saws to cut rocks, so workers are not directly exposed to dust. But that equipment can be expensive. And if mine owners won't buy it, Rana says the state should, as this land still belongs to the government.
गवर्नमेंट को देखना पड़ेगा कि अगर आप किसी को माइनिंग करने दे रहे हैं तो उसमें आप उनको बैकअप भी दीजिए. बेसिकली फाइनेंशियल, टेक्नोलॉजी, पॉलिटिकल विल के लिए एक गवर्नमेंट के अंदर एक सहमति होनी चाहिए कि हम अगर कमाएंगे तो हम किसी के ऊपर में किसी का शोषण करके नहीं कमाएंगे.
But the oppression goes back centuries. Most workers here are considered Dalit or untouchables. It's the lowest rung in the Hindu caste system, which was outlawed decades ago but still exists.
अब ये वर्कर्स, इन लोग बाई सिस्टम में ही ये लोग गांव के बाहर रखे जाते थे और वो जहाँ रहते थे वो बेसिकली एक रॉकी सरफेस हुआ करता था, कोई फर्टाइल लैंड नहीं था.
There they found sandstone and other rocks and began selling them. Soon the government wanted to cash in, so it claimed ownership of all underground minerals and offered mining licenses. Historically, some were reserved for marginalized communities, but many locals couldn't afford these permits, and that opened a door for the wealthy.
बलवान थे जिनके पास पैसा था, उन्होंने इन लोगों के नाम पे लीज निकलवाए क्योंकि इनके लिए प्रेफरेंसेस गवर्नमेंट ने दिए थे.
So on paper, the work was reserved for the lowest caste, but in reality, the mining belonged to those with money.
गुस्सा बहुत आता है, लेकिन क्या करते हैं, गुस्से को भी जोर जोर से दबा दबा के काम करते हैं.
While we were filming this video, Hira Ram was admitted to the hospital.
राम राम सर, क्या करो, ठीक हो? तबीयत बिजी ठीक है आपकी?
डॉक्टर बोलते हैं जमा हुए आपके पत्थर का जमा हुए इधर. अभी सांस तो रही आती है, जमा हुए ना. मैं ही कमाने वाला था, बच्चों को कौन पालेगा, कोई कमाने वाला घर में नहीं.
Hira died a month after we filmed this documentary. He told us he'd always worry about the family and friends he would leave behind. Annu now has silicosis too. And he doesn't know how much longer his lungs will hold out. So he keeps a quiet list of the things he'd do if he ever escapes this dust, before it claims his life too.
ताकत होती, पैसे होते तो हम मजदूरों के वास्ते हम कोई हॉस्पिटल बनाते, कोई सहायता भी देते, बच्चों को ग्रामीण में कोई शिक्षा भी दिलाते, अच्छे काम करते.
For over 500 years, miners in Bolivia have been digging out silver from this mountain. The precious metal is now more valuable than ever, soaring more than 150% in 2025 and hitting a record high of about $80 an ounce. AI is fueling the new demand. Silver is widely used in high-performance chips, circuit boards, and transmission networks at data centers. Now, global supplies are running short. This mountain once held the most silver in the world, but when we visited Bolivia in 2023, there was not much left. These days, the men mostly find zinc, tin, and lead. The non-stop mining has left this extinct volcano porous and unstable, and a threat to anyone who dares to work here.
इस
agotadores, no se puede aguantar, pero nosotros aguantamos.
So how do miners extract metals that are crucial to an AI future while using age-old techniques? And how do they stay safe inside a mountain on the brink of collapse? At 13,000 feet, Potosi is one of the highest cities on the planet. Cerro Rico, or Rich Mountain, towers over it. It made Potosi the wealthiest place in Latin America back in the 16th century. Today, it's one of the poorest. Luciano lives at the base of the mountain with his wife in a one-room house. There's no heat, just electricity and a stove for cooking. Luciano is semi-retired. But to make ends meet, he still mines once or twice a week. About 40% of Potosi's residents work in mining-related jobs. And nearly half of the population lives in extreme poverty, more than 3 times the national average. After 10 minutes, the bus drops Luciano at the mine. He stocks up on alcohol, and he buys coca leaves that give him energy. Then he buys sticks of dynamite to use later. There are nearly 500 mines in here, but many are abandoned. After entering the mine, Luciano first makes an offering to El Tío, or the uncle.
Bueno, Tío Benito.
Some historians believe the Spanish installed statues of the devil to scare the workers and instill discipline.
Tantos años que estamos trabajando aquí adentro, con tu protección, no, aquí adentro no me hagas sufrir, que me vaya bien siempre. Las vetas también.
Legend has it that in 1544, an indigenous farmer called Diego Hualpa discovered silver here while looking for his lost llamas. But it's the Spaniards who excavated most of it when they conquered Potosi in the 16th century. European engravings show how they forced more than 13,000 local indigenous peoples and enslaved Africans to work at the mines. Over the next 200 years, more than 40,000 tons of silver were shipped to Europe. Across the Spanish Empire, silver bars and coins were used as currency, funding the army and churches. Hundreds of years later, Bolivia's state mining company Comibol took over Cerro Rico. And when the price of silver dropped drastically in the 1980s, Comibol handed the mountain over to the indigenous people of the region. Currently, about 16,000 miners work here. They're descendants of the same indigenous communities who toiled here centuries ago. 65 miles of tunnels connect the mountain. These rails were installed between the 16th and 19th centuries. And miners still use simple tools like a chisel and hammer to extract ore.
Otros trabajan con anzo, otros no. Yo no caso de eso. siempre será mis manitos que será. Mis manos serán fuertes.
Today, Luciano's chipping away at a vein of tin, which is black in color.
Aquí está. Esto ya me sirve a mí.
But to find bigger pieces, he has to go deeper into the mountain's unexplored corners. For that, he needs dynamite.
Si no hay esto, no recibimos no podemos sacar ningún trozo de mineral de esta peña. Entonces, esto voy a meter al agujero que está al huequito, ahí lo voy a taquear fuertecito, entonces ahí va a reventar, lo va a botar a esta peña.
Luciano has to act fast since he's competing with other miners.
Por otro lado, con perforación al trabajo, rápido lo pelean, listo, que ahí pelean.
He moves nearly 200 feet away after setting off the dynamite.
Ya está.
Workers collect the broken rocks into sacks that can weigh up to 90 pounds. An elevator pulls the minerals up to where the mining carts are. The fatality rate inside small-scale mines like these is 90% higher than in industrialized countries.
Fuertes que somos, no sentimos así por así, ni el dolor, un poquito nos rasmillamos, no pasa nada, ya, seguimos.
Many miners contract silicosis, a deadly lung disease caused by constant exposure to dust, usually after 10 years of working inside the mine. Luciano was hospitalized for over a year because of it.
De todo ya lo siento, no estoy ya en mi cabalidad como antes, ya no trabajo. Tengo agitación hasta de mis vistas.
Luciano is 52, but most workers don't live past the age of 40. Luckily, he gets health insurance because he's part of one of the many cooperatives that control the mines. Each co-op has anywhere from 50 to 1,000 members, and they're all indigenous. Miners pay mostly monthly dues and a one-time membership fee that can cost up to $1,000. Members can also hire contractors to work on their behalf.
Sometimes these are other members of the mining cooperative, but sometimes they're day laborers. And the whole group works together following, for example, one vein of zinc or complejo, the mixed ore vein.
The biggest benefit of cooperatives is that miners can keep whatever they find. They could make a ton of money, enough to put themselves or their kids through school.
Their children will still inherit their membership in the cooperative, but instead of actually going underground and mining themselves, they only hire out day laborers to work on their behalf.
But day laborers aren't a part of cooperatives and don't get any benefits, only a daily wage as little as $10 US. Luciano can make about $70 on a good day, mining lead, zinc, or tin. These days, he rarely comes across silver. Most of it was exploited by 1825. But sometimes he can find traces of it in rocks.
Ahí está la plata. Esto clarito está que decimos zinc.
All the minerals are dumped into pits off the side of the mountain. They're sorted and then sold to middlemen who are buyers for foreign companies. Trucks transported out of Bolivia, which is landlocked, to ports in neighboring Chile. Then the unrefined minerals are shipped overseas. In 2021, Bolivia sold nearly $1.3 billion worth of zinc. Its uses include cars, batteries, even paint and rubber. Most of it ends up in South Korea, where it's processed at factories.
In addition to refining zinc, they're also able to extract indium, which is a mineral that is needed for a lot of touchscreen and high-end technologies that is much more lucrative, the unrefined zinc that the Bolivians export. The Bolivians do not receive any money for the indium that they export. It's often treated as a flaw.
While mineral exports keep Bolivia afloat, decades of excavation have destabilized Cerro Rico. Now, it's slowly sinking because of mining at the very top.
It's incredibly dangerous to be mining in the tip of the mountain because cave-ins are so increasingly common there. But it's also one of the places where there is the most remaining mineral, and so a lot of people are willing to take very high risks.
In 2014, a presidential decree was passed to stop excavation above the 14,000-foot mark. But several cooperatives did not sign the agreement. Now some experts say Cerro Rico is like a piece of Swiss cheese with many holes in it.
The cooperative miners aren't coordinating where they're going to go, what vein they're following, and so you can have a lot of structural problems that develop in the mountain when two miners are working quite close to one another, both following separate veins, but not leaving enough rock there to hold up the tunnel for anyone else who comes after.
State mining company Comibol is in charge of keeping the mountain structurally safe, even though it doesn't own the mines.
Para bolivianos es un monumento. Desde hace años, el Cerro Rico está en el escudo nacional.
Gregorio Socaño Coro is a technician for Comibol. Today, he's overseeing a project funded by the Bolivian government to fortify parts of the mountain. They're pumping cement into the peak to stabilize the shaky rocks.
Nosotros estamos haciendo lo que es relleno seco de emergencia para evitar los deslizamientos laterales para que no se engrande el diámetro de los hundimientos.
Gregorio wants Cerro Rico to continue to be a source of pride for Bolivians. But today, it is an endangered World Heritage Site. And the livelihoods of thousands of locals are at stake.
Bueno, los mineros en el interior del Cerro Rico trabajan casi los 24 horas. Es sostén económico para Potosí.
Every so often, Luciano visits this local cemetery.
Aquí está solo de una cooperativa, todos los mineros que están, mis primos de mis pueblos, los ex trabajadores.
Today, he's paying his respects to his late cousin, Zacharias.
Buen trabajador, buen pero por esto todo hacer este compañero me ha enseñado a mí trabajar como. Zacarías es la hermano, primo, protéjame.
Historians estimate about 8 million miners have died here from illnesses or accidents since the 16th century. Some graves here are nearly 200 years old. While Luciano relies on El Tío for support in the mines, here he prays to Jesus.
Tanto en adentro, tanto aquí en afuera, protéjanos. Yo soy un pobre humilde.
Meanwhile, Cerro Rico continues to loom over the city, a source of pride, fear, and sorrow for Bolivians. This pink lake in Senegal is saltier than the Dead Sea. And miners like Ousmane Dembélé scoop out thousands of tons of salt from it every year. But plunging into Lake Retba, or Lac Rose as locals call it, is a lot more dangerous than it seems. Still, Senegal is West Africa's leading salt producer, with ponds scattered across the country. Thousands of people depend on the industry. But some ecologists worry that Lac Rose and its signature pink hue are in danger of disappearing because of rapid urbanization and climate change. So, what's being done to protect one of Africa's most lucrative lakes, as well as the miners who break their backs working here every day? Ousmane Dembélé, also known as Baba, has been diving into Lac Rose for 20 years. Before heading out, he applies shea butter, which creates a protective layer over his skin. And he covers his legs the best he can with these socks, secured with bits of nylon. Baba then pushes out this wooden canoe that he bought for nearly $360. But it's a lifelong investment. He steers it to shallow parts of the lake where water evaporates faster, leaving behind salt crusts.
Dokdi, huh? Harumrai. Sino daran ko si sindok.
Baba and his brother, who taught him the trade, can afford very few tools, like these long shovels with which they reach the lake bed. They also use their feet to feel for the salt, but that can be risky.
Ndogbi, souvent bufi, souvent aussi satangabi, day pedal.
He can't go underwater to look for the crusts because he doesn't have goggles, and the high salinity can damage his eyes. Baba usually spends 4 to 5 hours doing this, over and over again.
Huh? I'm going to go near.
Extracting the salt is actually beneficial for the lake, which would fill up if the deposits aren't removed. In some parts, Lac Rose is 10 times saltier than normal ocean water. That's because it's separated from the Atlantic by a strip of sand dunes that formed thousands of years ago. While the saltwater seeps in from the ocean, there's no outlet for Lac Rose. And as the sun evaporates surface water faster than it comes in, it leaves behind high concentrations of salt and other minerals. At its peak, salinity can be as high as 40%, even more than the Dead Sea. As for its signature pink color, that comes from a type of algae called Dunaliella salina, which flourishes in salt water. It produces an orange-red pigment when it absorbs sunlight. That's why Lac Rose glows brightest in the dry season, between November and June. Once full, these baskets can weigh about 55 pounds each. On a good day, Baba and his brother fill about 60 of these. That's as much as the canoe can carry without capsizing. So harvesters add these sticks as markers to come back and collect more salt later. The hard work isn't over yet. Curaçao is one of many workers whose job is transporting the salt from the canoe into piles along the lake's banks, where it dries off.
boo amul beneen liggéey moom foo nga jàpp si amuñu beneen métier fii Sénégal moom xam nga rek beneen métier amul ñun lii la ñu xam moo tax ñun moom noo def nawet ci lañuy liggéey.
Kura makes about 20 trips back and forth every day.
Bañ a métti yëpp ay métti boobu beeg tànk yi yëpp ay métti liggéey bi moom dara seddu si.
For every canoe she unloads, she makes about 1,000 West African francs or $2 US. That can buy her a few loaves of bread in Senegal. But the more basins she collects, the more money she makes. So she fights through the pain.
Day métti moom waaye nag dangay jënd frotté day fekk yaa ngi am frotté ba sangu ba set frotté ba lii frotté ba tooy xepp ba naane attaaya day coono bi day wàcc.
The job has also taken a toll on Baba's body, which is covered in sores. So he applies duct tape on his wounds.
Day bless ko xam nga layan souvent bu fekkee yaa ngi yëkkati bu touché rek souvent day jox gom.
This tape is the only protection that Baba can afford. He makes just $5 to $10 a day based on the amount of salt he harvests. Still, he is thankful for it.
Du ragal amul la ragal toujours yaa ngi dem liggéeyante dara noonu la liggéey kay toujours bu yeggee si liggéey yow du ragal.
Workers like him are the backbone of Senegal's salt industry, harvesting nearly 60,000 metric tons from the lake per year. Artisanal extraction started to thrive in the early 70s when the Senegalese government officially classified Lac Rose as a mine and allowed locals to harvest salt without official permits or paying royalties. These days, wholesalers buy it directly from people like Baba for up to 80 cents per basket, but they often sell it for double that price. Salt is also collected in other parts of Senegal. Here in the Palmarin region, locals have dug up hundreds of small salt wells that naturally collect saline water from the sea.
Depuis longtemps, des années, quand j'étais un enfant, j'ai commencé à travailler du sel. C'était ma grand-mère qui travaillait. Et chaque jour, je viens ici pour ramasser du sel.
Women spend up to 8 hours a day scooping it up and leaving it out to dry.
Oui, c'est dur. Oui, c'est dur. Mais c'est bon encore. Parce que si on travaille, tu vas à l'école, tu inscris tes enfants.
Women are also taking charge in the nearby salt flats of Fatick.
Et lorsque je suis arrivée dans 2 à 3 mois, 4 mois, j'ai vécu que les hommes sont aussi dans ce site de production pour exploiter ça et là, ça leur appartient. Et moi, je dis, pourquoi les hommes et non les femmes?
Marie Diouf, now known as the Salt Queen, started her own business here.
J'étais courageux de dire que moi, je vais réussir. Avec aussi beaucoup de moyens que j'ai engagés. Avec beaucoup de plans d'action.
One reason why her salt sells fast is because she mixes in iodine. Adding the mineral is required in most African countries, but isn't enforced. A 2021 survey found that iodine deficiency rates in sub-Saharan Africa are twice as high as the global average, contributing to health problems like swelling, fatigue, and issues during pregnancy.
D'après l'élevé de la consommation de l'iode dans mon village, je peux dire que la santé de mes enfants est augmentée, mes revenus d'activité aussi sont augmentés.
While Senegal is the largest salt producer in West Africa, generating about 500,000 tons a year, globally it doesn't rank among the top 10. China is the biggest manufacturer, producing 53 million tons of salt a year, followed by the US and India, which generates 30 million tons of salt annually. About a third of it comes from this dry seabed called Little Run of Kutch, and it ends up in soaps, detergents, and table salt. But miners say collecting it in this scorching heat causes boils and skin diseases. And just like Senegal, the miners don't make much, earning a meager wage of $4 a ton. Another spot that's known for its therapeutic salt is the Dead Sea, which lies landlocked between Israel and Jordan. For centuries, tourists have visited seeking cures for skin diseases. But the Dead Sea is also teeming with other minerals, like magnesium and potash, which is a type of potassium-rich salt often used as a fertilizer. The process for harvesting these minerals is mechanized, as companies use techniques like dredging, and modern plants refine millions of tons every year. Meanwhile, here at Lac Rose, miners are facing obstacles to growing their business. The climate crisis is bringing more rain to the region every year. Salt collectors were hit hardest in 2022, when flooding breached the lake's banks. Water started streaming in from new channels, diluting the lake's salinity and its signature pink color.
Et tous ces marigots et ces cours d'eau-là sont de façon naturelle drainés, si vous voulez, et en suivant la topographie, vers le Lac Rose.
We first visited the lake in 2024, 2 years after the floods, when it still looked muddy. We went back in 2025, and it had finally regained its pink color. That's what attracts visitors from all around the world. But tourism has been a blessing and a curse to this lake. Removal of nearby dunes to make way for hotels and vacation homes has caused the lake to erode. Many of these developments don't have a proper sewage system, so they dump untreated waste in here. That's elevating nitrate levels in the water, sometimes even contaminating the salt. Scientists worry that if these salt crusts become unusable and aren't extracted, they could fill up this depression. And within a few years, Lac Rose could disappear. While there are virtually no living creatures inside the lake, it's still important for surrounding ecosystems and birds. Now, environmentalists are pushing for it to be designated as a UNESCO heritage site to protect its biodiversity. While Lac Rose is still around, Baba continues to work here day in and day out. His family lives in the neighboring country of Mali, which is where he's from. But he's found community among the local families that live nearby. Spending time with them is his only outlet after a long day's work.
C'est Dieu qui va faire tout. L'homme, il peut rien faire.
Here in Peru, the search for a seafood delicacy begins with a motorcycle ride through the desert. Just a handful of people in the whole country are skilled enough to scale the towering cliffs. They're hunting for a special mollusk called barquillo, found inside coastal rocks where the waves crash.
Para que ellos deleiten este marisco, nosotros tratamos de regar, ¿no?, la vida de nosotros, ¿no?
Barquillos are the main ingredient in a special kind of seafood ceviche that's made only in the remote town of Warmey, which has now become a go-to destination for foodies from all over the world. But what's in it for the men who put their lives on the line hunting for this elusive sea creature? About a 5-hour drive north of Lima is the small fishing town of Warme. Every day, Armenio Lobato de la Cruz packs up his climbing gear and hits the road.
Todas las mañanas me encomiendo a las manos de Dios, que Él nos cuide, nos resguarde. Yo sé que Él nos ha dado la vida y Él nos la puede quitar también.
He's learning from his mentor, Juan Lee Gormez, who has nearly 20 years of experience as a shellfish collector or mariscador. He's known as El Grande. Together, they bike for 25 miles till they reach this coastal desert.
Yo, por ejemplo, primera vez que fui al acantilado, lo sentía un poco riesgoso, ¿no? Pero un poquito que el cuerpo me escarapelaba, un poquito de miedo tenía por ahí.
But with time, El Grande says he overcame his fear.
Tú eres independiente de uno mismo. No es como de un trabajo te dice, entra a tal hora y tal hora vas así.
They prefer to scale the cliffs the way their ancestors did, without any formal rock climbing gear. The men wear hand-woven mesh shoes that don't retain water.
Prácticamente se agarra, ¿no? Como dicen, que no trata de resbalar.
El Grande ties the rope around an iron rod that's hammered into the rock. This is the only thing that anchors them to these cliffs that are as high as 1,000 feet.
Al inicio sí era un poco que le tenía miedo, ¿no? Pensaba que de repente ya no iba a regresar.
Mira, toca.
Pero ahora sí ya tengo costumbre, ¿no?
Lobato goes first. The two men take turns rappelling down using each other for support like a pulley system.
Se hace fuerza en la soga bastante, tienes dolor de brazos. La mano, como te digo, te duele bastante en la fuerza que haces. Te quemas la soga. Por varias oportunidades me ha reventado los dedos.
Falling rocks and debris make the descent even more challenging.
No tienes que estar preocupado en nada, porque a veces si tú estás preocupado en algo, puedes tener una mala agar. Uno tiene que estar su mente despejado.
El Grande starts to descend once Lobato stops at about 300 feet down.
Ya prácticamente ya lo sé de memoria ya, a ese acantilado ya.
The rope isn't long enough to reach the rocks in one shot. So they carry more and tie it at different points along the route. The entire descent takes them about 40 minutes. Finally, El Grande meets Lobato at a ledge near the ocean. The water temperature, even in the summer, is around 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So they put on a thermal suit for insulation. These cost them about 1,000 Peruvian soles or about $270, but they're an essential investment. December to March are the best months to harvest the barquillos because the ocean is relatively calmer. So when the water retreats during low tide, they try to pluck as many barquillos as they can.
Guarda. Corres, entras a la piedra, sacas y rápido sales también.
No, llévatelo todo. Ay.
Y si es que el agua también no viene con fuerza, tú te cubres bajo la piedra y el agua pasa por encima. Entonces tú estás protegido ahí y sigues trabajando.
Saludos para Mimi, tienes que decirle. Ay. Córrete.
The barquillos thrive off the algae and seagrass that cover the slippery rocks. They're just 2 inches long and blend in, but the men know exactly what they look like. They use their hands and sometimes a piece of spring iron to get them off.
Que nosotros le sacamos punta para que el marisco lo hinquemos y sale el marisco. Sí, sin esto el marisco se pega duro a la roca.
Here in Peru, mariscadores were harvesting barquillos as far back as 600 AD, using rafts to reach them. The exterior shell is made of 8 plates that overlap slightly, allowing it to curl up into a ball. Inside, it has a radula or tongue covered with sharp, tiny teeth that help it eat the algae. They can live up to 20 years and are a natural source of food for birds, crabs, starfish, and more. Species of this mollusk are also found in Alaska, California, Chile, and the Great Barrier Reef. But today, there are only a dozen mariscadores left in and around Warme who collect the barquillo this way. Others, like Juan Obed Logimet, rent boats to get to nearby tidal pools. But that's expensive and much slower. Mariscadores also say they can access more locations by climbing up and down the cliffs. But Juan can no longer do that. Last year, a wave thrashed him on these rocks, permanently injuring his knee.
Me gira el cuerpo, me tumba y trac solo. Yo quise pararme y ya el dolor era insoportable.
He uses a different technique to catch the shellfish with special bamboo sticks or cañas. He attaches an iron hook on one stick to scrape off the barquillo, and a mesh net on the other to catch it. This helps him reach deep into the rocks while staying away from the waves.
Mar, tú tienes que saber las corrientes en las cuales está en ese momento, ¿no? Hoy día puede estar el agua bien buena y mañana puede estar hecha un león. Los accidentes que yo he tenido han sido fuertes, o sea, rotura de hueso, costillas, tendonitis, esguince. Y bueno, pues yo dije, la vida hasta que te dice, te doy una oportunidad más, trata de cambiar lo que estás haciendo.
Accidents like his are all too common for mariscadores in Peru, which is one of the world's top 5 fishing nations. But the majority of incidents go unreported since the fishing sector is mostly informal.
Hay muchas cruces que los familiares han puesto en el filo de los acantilados, como recordatorio de los que han muerto ahí.
Today, Lobato and El Grande plucked about 350 barquillos in 3 hours, and even ate some of them fresh. If they're in the shell, they can stay alive for a couple of days. But mariscadores often deshell them so their load is lighter. Pulling themselves up after a whole day of fishing is exhausting and takes the most stamina. Once the men are back in Warme, they try to sell the barquillo right away to wholesalers.
Ay, rico, pues saladito, es el sabor al mar, ¿no?
Juan also delivers barquillos to local fish markets. He can make up to 500 soles a week, or about $136, depending on his haul. In this part of Peru, that could pay for a week's worth of groceries for a family of 4.
Ya, listo, Carmen. Muchas gracias.
Juan's family also runs a seafood restaurant that serves ceviche, the national dish of Peru. It's usually a mixture of raw seafood and fish with onions and citrus juice. But restaurants in Warmey are known for making it with only shellfish. Foodies from all over the world travel here to try the famous version of ceviche.
Donde se come lo mejor el ceviche acá en Warmey.
El barquillo, por ejemplo, es una comida wari antigua de nuestros incas, nuestros pasados ya comían ceviches de marisco. Lo hacían con guanábana y con maracuyá, que es algo agrio, ácido, y lo convertían en su ceviche.
And while this is a local treat found in every corner of Warmey, mariscadores like Juan feel forgotten.
Y la gente queda maravillada, pero no sabe qué hay detrás de todo ese trabajo que se ha hecho para que llegue a su mesa el marisco.
There are other jobs in the area in mining and agriculture, but El Grande and Lobato say shellfish hunting is the most lucrative for them right now.
No me importa el peligro, ¿no? Lo que me importa es que mis hijos sean profesionales. Si es que mi trabajo es desesperarme y hacer plata para que ellos estudien. Tengo que agarrarme fuerte y que no me pase nada, ¿no? Porque tengo que llegar bien a casa.
Killar Road, deep in the Himalayas, is one of the most dangerous in the world. One reckless turn could send drivers hurtling down nearly 11,000 feet.
अगर आप मौत से डरते हो तो आपको ट्रक ड्राइविंग तो क्या आपको ट्रक पे बैठना भी चाहिए. क्योंकि यहाँ पे मौत किसी भी टाइम किसी भी पल आ सकती है.
Still, every summer, Ankur Rawat makes several trips, delivering basic supplies to remote villages along this perilous route. It connects the rest of India to the isolated region of Pangi Valley, which is cut off for nearly 6 months of the year because of heavy snow.
ये तो सर इनकी लाइफलाइन है. अगर फूड ही नहीं यहाँ पहुँचेगा तो कैसे सरवाइव कर पाएंगे.
But sometimes trucks break down along the way, leaving drivers stranded for days. So, what does it take to navigate these heavy-duty trucks on this deadly path? We rode along with Anku through the mountains for 3 days to find out. Anku lives in the village of Palhoon with his wife Sabita and their children. He never really knows what the weather will be, so he packs plenty of blankets. They sit down for a family dinner before Anku sets off. He first picks up the truck from a private parking lot that rents them out. This one has a power steering and a 5600cc engine, ideal for driving through the mountains.
जितने भी हम ट्रक ड्राइवर होते हैं ना, हमारी सबकी मोड़नी होती है गाड़ी. ये सबकी मोड़नी होती है. ये हमारी जान होती है. मुझे अपने घर का उतना पता है जितना मुझे गाड़ी के कोने-कोने का पता है.
Anku will make a few pit stops on this 107-mile journey. First, he'll travel about 10 miles from his home to a warehouse in Chamba to pick up food rations. Then, he'll pass through several small towns and go through Sach Pass, the highest point on Killar Road, before reaching his destination, the district of Pangi Valley. Today, Anku's loading 100-pound bags of wheat provided by the government to sustain India's most isolated regions. His truck can carry up to 12 tons, but any more than that and it could topple over. He always stops at this local temple along the way.
तो मेरे तो बस ये जिंदगी में एक ही मकसद है कि मालिक सही सलामत रखे और मैं मेरे परिवार को मेरी ज़रूरत है.
The truck can hold up to 250 liters of diesel. But there are hardly any gas stations along the route.
जब हम यहाँ पे आते हैं तो अपना तेल लेके भी आते हैं क्योंकि ट्रक टुक्कों में फिर तेल खत्म हो जाएगा तो कहाँ से लाएंगे.
The terrain starts off pretty smooth. But as the truck goes uphill, it gets rough. And his speed drops below 10 miles per hour. At this point, the road is only 10 feet wide. And there's barely room for two cars to drive next to each other. So when another vehicle approaches, Anku needs to carefully reverse, sometimes by hundreds of yards.
इन सड़कों पे 2 घंटे 3 घंटे एक पिकअप आ गई आगे से ट्रक रुक गई 4 घंटे 5 घंटे पूरा दिन जाम लगा नॉर्मल सी बात है.
Luckily, he's traveling with truck conductor Mohammad Nisar Moghal, who jumps out and guides Anku around blind spots and dangerous turns.
आगे पीछे देखना पड़ता है कि गाड़ी कहीं टच नहीं हो जाए ऊपर. कभी गाड़ी नहीं चढ़ती है तो मतलब पत्थर लगा के फिर चढ़ाना पड़ता है ऐसे.
There are no guardrails to prevent them from veering off.
क्योंकि पहाड़ों पे कई बार ऐसा होता है कि बारिश में जब हम गाड़ी चलाते हैं अगर ब्रेक 2 इंच अगर लेट लगी ना तो गाड़ी स्किड हो जाती है.
In July 2022, a jeep rolled into a gorge, killing 5 people. And in 2023, 7 people died after the vehicle was hit by a landslide on this route.
होता है कई बार ऐसा हमारे सामने गाड़ियाँ गिरती हैं लोग मरते हैं तो मैं सोचता हूँ कि आज ये है कल नंबर मेरे भी आ सकते हैं.
But after years of experience as a trucker, Anku isn't easily intimidated.
इन्हीं रोड में सीखे हैं इन रोड में चलते हैं बस मेन रोड पे जहाँ 4 लाइन आ गई वहाँ हमारी टांगे मेरी टांगे काम जाती है भाई.
All the traditional rules of the road don't really apply. Truck drivers communicate with hand signals, which becomes important during moments of congestion like this.
हमने ऐसे किया तो ऐसे किया कई बार हम ऐसे करते हैं कई बार हम ऐसे करते हैं कई बार हम ऐसे करते हैं तो इसके बड़े साइन होते हैं.
They also use pressure horns, which are illegal in India, but Anku says they need them for safety reasons.
अगर इन पहाड़ों पे ये प्रेशर हॉर्न ना हो तो आगे से आने वाली गाड़ी को क्या पता लगेगा छोटी गाड़ी की बड़ी गाड़ी है.
Anku doesn't wear a seatbelt either, even though under Indian law he's required to. He says for this type of driving, they can do more harm than good, as they restrict the driver from leaning over.
सीट बेल्ट पहाड़ों पे मौत है.
But stats on semi-truck accidents show that drivers are more likely to survive if they buckle up. In this state alone, trucks and buses accounted for 12% of all fatal crashes in 2022. Landslides and snowfall have also weakened this road structure, forming ditches and piles of debris. So the government hires contractors to keep repairing it. Killa Road started off as a footpath with narrow trails carved by shepherds and traders who were trying to reach the remote Pangi Valley. Legend has it that residents of Chamba fled to the hidden region to escape Mughal invaders. Others believe that in the 16th century, the king of Chamba banished criminals to this isolated region. These days, Killa Road is used mainly by tourists, bikers seeking an adrenaline rush, truckers, and local residents. After about 8 to 9 hours of driving, the men pull over. They make a fire to start cooking with groceries they brought from home. But even during dinner, they stay vigilant in case they're confronted by wild animals or thieves.
रात को गाड़ी लोड होती है तो लेकिन हम इतने मतलब चौकस होते हैं कि जरा सी भी आवाज़ कर दे गाड़ी तो एकदम नींद खुल जाती है कि क्या हुआ.
There are no hotels for miles, so they sleep in the truck's cabin.
आप मुझे किसी होटल में ले जाओ, VIP कमरे पे आप मुझे सुला दो ना, पर जो मुझे फील गाड़ी में बैठ के आता है ना, तो ये तो हमारी माँ होती है, हमारा घर होता है ये. चलिए उठ जा.
The next day, they start driving at the crack of dawn. Killa Road gets even more treacherous and spectacular as trucks pass through waterfalls and incredibly tight spaces.
जब मैं ये ट्रक लेके आया था तो मुझे लोग मना कर रहे थे कि भाई ये बड़ी हाइट है.
Vehicles along this route often run into mechanical problems. This truck carrying grains to Pangi Valley broke down after the gearbox stopped working. The mechanic says the nearest store for car parts is about 180 miles away.
मैं ही आता हूँ यहाँ. अब हम यहाँ से कम 20 किलोमीटर दूर जाएंगे पैदल. वहाँ पर जरा सा सिग्नल आएगा मोबाइल का. वहाँ से फ़ोन करेंगे, मैसेज देंगे किसी बंदे को, फिर वहाँ से सामान भेजेंगे वो.
The whole process will take 4 days, and the truck will just stay here until then. Anku and his team carry on with their journey. At around midday, they stop at a local dhaba for a quick bite. These cafes cater to truck drivers. The people who run them, like Lakshman Sharma, understand how hard it is to drive around here.
भगाने की रोड नहीं है तो भगाना कहाँ से है? बंदा पैदल चलेगा तो बंदा पहले पहुँच जाएगा बैरागढ़ और किलाड़ में तो गाड़ियाँ उसके बाद पहुँचेगी.
But even these cafes close down once it starts snowing around October.
और इन ड्राइवरों को हम इतना लाइक करते हैं कि जो इस रोड पे ये ट्रक और बस लेके आते जाते हैं और इनकी हिम्मत को हम दाग देते हैं.
While Anku's job is an essential service, he only makes about 10,000 rupees a month. That's about $4 a day, enough to buy a few pounds of rice and lentils in India.
हमारे भारतवर्ष में ना सबसे ज़्यादा मेहनत ट्रक ड्राइवर थे और सैलरी के नाम पे कुछ भी नहीं है.
He could make about 25,000 rupees a month as a personal driver in Delhi or Bombay. But his heart belongs here in the Himalayas. And he wants the whole world to know how beautiful these mountains are.
Hi guys, कैसे हैं आप? सब बढ़िया होंगे भाई.
So he vlogs on the side. He has about 50,000 followers and counting on YouTube.
ये वीडियो देखने के बाद आप बोलोगे भाई पांगी हम नहीं जाएंगे यार. आने दो. मुझे उतनी ब्लॉगिंग तो करनी आती नहीं पर मैंने कोशिश की तो ब्लॉगिंग से पैसा तो नहीं आया पर चलो इतना है कि लोग जाने लग पड़े और मैं दिखाता हूँ लोगों की पहाड़ों पे कितने रिस्की काम होता है.
But the most treacherous part of this route is getting through Sach Pass. At nearly 14,500 feet, Sach Pass is one of the highest navigable places in the state of Himachal Pradesh. Drivers are advised not to stop at the top for more than 5 minutes because there's so little oxygen in the air. The road through here is even more narrow, barely more than 8 feet wide. So, Anku needs to be extremely mindful when navigating the steep slope.
पर साच पास में आज दिन तक जो गाड़ी फंसी है ना सीजन के टाइम में तो वो गाड़ी कभी फिर बनी नहीं फिर. और साच पास में आप जैसे मैं ट्रक है हमारा ना हम ट्रक वाले कभी गाड़ी बंद नहीं करते हैं. अगर गाड़ी बंद कर दी फिर मुड़ के स्टार्ट नहीं होगी.
It takes him about 3 to 4 hours to go through this 9-mile stretch.
उसाई अपने साइड रखो. आने दो.
After they're through, Anku recaps the journey for his followers.
ओ भाई वो क्या ही रोड था, एक तो आधा टायर बाहर और ऊपर गाड़ी खराब हो गई, ना खाने को कुछ, ने स्ट्रगल को हम झेलते हुए ना अब पहुंच गए अपने किलाड़।
Kilar is among 106 villages in Pangi Valley, which has a total population of just 18,000 people.
साल के तो कोई 6 महीने तो ये डिस्कनेक्ट ही रहता है, ये वनस्पति वगैरह ये सब खत्म हो जाती है एक बर्फ से ही।
Almost 200 trucks head there every summer, carrying food, medicine, and other basic supplies. They're stored at this warehouse for the winter, and residents buy them at a subsidized rate set by the government.
अगर वो ट्रक ना पहुंचे तब तो सर इनकी लाइफलाइन बिल्कुल ही डिस्टर्ब हो जाएगी।
As soon as they're done unloading, Anku and his colleagues hit the road. Along the way, they pass by a nomadic community called the Gujars. For Anku, catching up with them over a cup of tea has become a ritual. Even though driving through these mountains is a part of Anku's identity, the job has worn him down.
शुरू में जब मैं छोटा बच्चा था तो मुझे मेरे पापा बोलते थे कि भाई मैंने कोई एरोप्लेन वगैरह खिलौने वगैरह लेके आता था तो मैं बोलता कि मुझे ट्रक ही चाहिए। अब शौक था पहले, अब मजबूरी बन चुकी है।
But he still yearns for the day he can truly enjoy the breathtaking nature around him.
तो मैं 7 सालों में जितनी बार ट्रक लेके आया ना, मुझे वो मौका ही नहीं मिला कि मैं ध्यान से देखूं। फैमिली के साथ आऊंगा मैं तो फिर मैं पूरा एंजॉय लूंगा थोड़ा रुक के ना।
This pile of dirt came from one of the most valuable emerald mines in the world. Hundreds of people scavenged through waste by hand to uncover a few tiny stones.
Es muy común que hayan fracturas. Han salido personas con la clavícula fracturada, tobillos.
For Nidian, it's worth the risk. She used her last big score to pay off her debts and buy a home. But she hasn't found anything valuable in a year. Just a few miles away, commercial operations backed by foreign investors say they find emeralds every hour. Some sell for a fortune.
Retail a stone like this could go for about $500,000.
So what happens when foreign investors take over a $150 million industry? And can local miners gain a piece of it back? Emeralds form when hydrothermal fluids collect and mix beryllium with chromium or vanadium. The elements crystallize in deposits and form the storied green gems. But Colombia has a secret ingredient. It's one of the few places on Earth where emeralds form in shale instead of igneous rock. Shale contains the ingredients for emeralds, but it also creates byproducts like sulfur and pyrite. The sulfur absorbs some of the iron that would normally go into an emerald. Less iron means a more saturated green color. And for emerald buyers, color is king.
Diamonds have been out there for a long time. Color stone is now another different league of valuation of stones.
57, around 35,000 per carat.
Buyers around the world covet these emeralds, but the profit is rarely seen by those who live around the mines. This is Muso. Miners have fought over the town's emeralds for centuries. Some line up as early as 3 a.m. for what's known as the voladora.
Me imagino teniéndola en la mano. Yo antes de tenerla, yo ya he planificado qué voy a hacer con ella.
Nidian is a guaquero, or guaquera in her case. She's an informal miner, sort of like a prospector during the California gold rush.
Yo le tengo mucha fe a la esmeralda, pero es mentalidad, es suerte, es energía. No sabemos qué es, pero así es la esmeralda.
But to have a shot at finding something, you need to be ready to run. Lilian claims her spot and digs for treasure the size of a pebble. This debris comes from the nearby Puerto Arturo mine, which is backed by US investors.
Pues entre nosotras nos respetamos, ¿no? Ya lo que hizo la señora que entra de última. Y si la regalamos, le dije, le regalo un platado y me sacó 2, pues claro, me dio rabia. Si hay una chispa y brota y usted está mirando para otro lado, la cogen y a la boca o a las botas y calla ahí. Cuando hay dinero o esmeraldas involucrados, no hay amigos. A veces ni familia.
The oldest guaqueros remember when mine runoff flowed through this river and fines were more common. But environmental regulations and modernized excavation put a stop to that. Lilian spent 4 hours digging and sifting.
Sacamos unas chispitas que algo han de valer. No mucho, no es nada, pero vale. Hay ocasiones en las que no sacamos absolutamente nada.
These small stones are probably worth less than $25 each. Voladoras happen sporadically, so her next opportunity won't be for another few weeks.
A ver, cuéntenos cómo le fue en la mina que hizo ayer que...
Usted quería grabar y se cayó.
A mí que me estaban grabando y me caí. O sea, yo sí me he caído. No, pero no grabaron la caída, menos mal.
No.
Ahí sí me hubiera vuelto viral. Qué trágico va a ser que usted vaya y por cargarse un bulto al hombro se saque 10, 20, 30, 50 millones. Eso no es trágico. Trágico es uno trabajar en una ciudad 8 horas diarias, incluso a veces yo he llegado a trabajar 12 horas por un salario. Eso sí es triste. Eso sí es trágico.
But the more formal and modern the mines become, the less that's left for the guaqueros. And the fight to control Colombia's emeralds has raged for generations. In the mid-20th century, the Colombian government tried to nationalize the mines, but the remote area proved impossible to control. So in the 1970s, the government leased titles to local leaders called dons, hoping that collecting royalties would be easier than direct management.
This is in the middle of the Colombian mountains. You feel that you are in a completely different country and it's very isolated. That made elites, local elites, regional elites, able to basically hold power that was not attached to a creation of a central state.
The dons were locals, some even former guaqueros. They won loyalty by letting their miners pocket and sell small emeralds, as long as they didn't get caught taking too much.
These were people who accumulate a lot of power and power that could become violent in many ways. But at the same time, they will become the ones who will provide jobs and economic benefits to the population.
This power made the Dons rich, but it cost thousands of lives. Beginning in 1965, countless messy fights erupted between Dons, illegal miners, paramilitaries, and drug traffickers in a series of conflicts known as the Green Wars. Fighting dragged on until a ceasefire in 1990.
It was basically an agreement of not killing each other. For the most part, when I went in the early 2000s, many people were saying, oh, the peace is holding here.
By the 2010s, sustained peace had attracted the eye of international investors, and control of the mines shifted from the Dons to foreign companies with deep pockets. But even this didn't come without conflict. In the past decade, miners in Mosul have repeatedly clashed with an American-backed company over access to emeralds. And in late 2024, tensions spiked again. In November, the voladora was suspended and guaqueros protested by blocking roads and forcing their way onto mine property. In January, the governor of the Department of Boyacá met with mine owners and local leaders to discuss improving conditions for the guaqueros, like formalizing the voladora and prioritizing local labor and goods.
Garantiza que podamos seguir teniendo paz y sana convivencia en la región.
But at the time of publishing, there hasn't been a voladora for 3 months. However, locals say outside investment has brought benefits as well. Just a few kilometers away from Mosul as the crow flies, but nearly a day's journey by bumpy roads, lies one of the biggest emerald mines in Colombia. This is the Cosquez mine. Fura Gems, a company based in Dubai, acquired a majority stake in 2017. The company poured $150 million into modernizing and expanding the vast tunnels. Today, Fura exports 500,000 carats annually. Just 10 years ago, this mine looked very different. Tunnels were narrow, and miners pushed around small quantities of ore by hand.
When we came, it was hardly like a mine of a 1 by 1 meter. And right now, we are standing here by 4 by 4. Even your car can pass through this mine. This is going to be the largest mine of emerald in the world.
But Fura's investment means there's less and less available for locals. Like these women, known as artisanal tunnel miners.
Lo más duro, pues en sí, aquí el trabajo, que esto es que todo el mundo dice que es para varones, pero olvídese, nosotros también tenemos la fuerza, la capacidad, la inteligencia también de nosotros sacar esmeralda.
They do things the old way. Smaller tunnels, limited equipment, and more dangerous conditions. Many artisanal miners have applied for an official mining title to legitimize their claim, a process the National Mining Agency says it's made easier to access.
Encontrarnos una esmeralda de tal valor que nos dé para una casa y pues en la mía personal, tener un negocio que me solvente el día a día.
But the peace that enabled Fura to thrive hasn't helped small-scale miners financially. Yaneth might go all year without making any profit.
When you see the value or the price that a very good emerald can have in the market, is not something that, like most of these towns, will see as their income in a lifetime.
But for the 500 workers Fura employs, the recent foreign investment has been life-changing. Some, like Carmenza, were happy to give up artisanal tunnel mining.
Era un trabajo muy agotador. No teníamos buena ventilación, buen sostenimiento. Todos los días uno se iba con ese, con ese miedo, ¿sí? Que le pasara a uno algo. Yo un día ingresé, estando recogiendo la tierra, me cayó, me salvé porque pues donde la piedra me caiga encima empecé a pedir auxilios. Es algo muy riesgoso, es algo muy peligroso y pues yo le doy gracias a Dios porque estoy contando el cuento en estos momentos acá con ustedes.
The hunt for green starts with a hunt for white, calcite. Even valuable emeralds are relatively small, so calcite veins in which the gems often form are a signal to miners to look closely.
Es algo que pues es suerte, es la suerte pues. Todas las esmeraldas son valiosas, pero pues todas no son de la misma calidad, ni grande no. Grande no.
If the area is promising, miners clear away the rock and add supporting material. Then, it's time to get up close. This is the most exhausting part of the job. But today, Carmenza's work is rewarded. And just like the guaqueros, miners can't beat a trusty metal bowl for catching loose gems. But one big difference compared to Nidian is that anything Carmenza finds, she promptly puts into a lockbox. Supervisors even check her mask and boots for smuggled gems. Workers at Fura are paid with a salary, not emeralds. Carmenza says it's still exciting to find one, even though she can't take it home.
Que está la producción es algo de alegría, pues se motiva uno a seguir en el chequeo, porque uno se va con esa que hay más esmeralda en el frente.
Back in 2018, the washing process looked similar to what the guaqueros do by hand. Now, it's on a whole other level. Optical sorters, equipped with cameras and ultraviolet lights, detect and redirect emeralds. But meticulous washing means there's little left over for guaqueros like Nidian. In fact, Fura doesn't provide debris for the voladora. It says it uses leftover shale for road maintenance and infrastructure around the mine.
Cuando yo ingresé como minera artesanal, se trabajaba como con esa desconfianza porque pues se presentaba mucho, uno ingresaba al frente de trabajo y bueno, que las peleas, que una cosa, otra. Pasa más tiempo acá que en casas. Acá ya es una familia más para uno. Yo soy madre, cabeza de hogar, tengo 2 niños por los cuales yo soy la que me veo pues reflejada en el trabajo para ellos, para llevarles pues sus alimentos, su mensualidad a ellos, para ayudas de sus alimentos. Entonces me siento muy feliz de estar trabajando acá.
It's a steady job in a place without many other options. But most of the money generated from emerald mining doesn't stay in the communities around Cosquez or Muso.
Most of the profit, of course, is being made by the owners of the mines, but it's also being made internationally for those who trade the emeralds, and those profits never touch the regions where the emeralds are produced.
Each year, Colombia exports about $130 to $150 million worth of emeralds. One of the top buyers is the US.
Demand for emeralds is increasing, and people are buying from all corners of the world. People think, oh, you own a mine, it's easy. It's tons of headaches.
Michael invested in a mine in Colombia to source the quality of gems he's after.
Of course, the bigger, the better, but we look in terms of the quality. What's the best of the quality to have? A lighter emerald is less valuable than a darker emerald. Also, too dark is also not correct. The average price per carat is anywhere from $5,000 to $35,000, $40,000.
Michael sells emeralds wholesale to jewelers like Tiffany, and he says emeralds he's sold have shown up on the red carpet and at royal weddings.
Without Muzo entering in 2009, without Fura coming in 2017, I wouldn't think to be involved in mining.
For Michael, the peace and modernization brought by foreign investors has been a welcome change.
The American company coming in to buy the mine, it cleaned up the area. Peace, not fighting, is the best thing. Me as a businessman is about buying the beautiful gems Colombia produces and bringing it to the world. That's the passion I have. There's an excitement and a passion to this greenstone for me and my family.
Fura shares this excitement. The company says it plans to invest over $100 million more in Colombia, and it extended its mining license to 2050. While the industry is modernized, in many ways it hasn't changed. The cycle of exploitation dates back 500 years. In the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors forced indigenous people and enslaved Africans to work the mines. The Spanish coveted valuable deposits, and lavish emeralds made their way to crowns and jewelry around the world. Since then, the mines have changed hands countless times. There has been peace and times of intense fighting, but the real money has always been made by those at the top.
For the most part, those at the top, those who are the owners of the mines or the traders in the international markets or the users, don't care about those disposable populations. They can always change. They are not getting rich, but there will always be people in need of engaging in these economies to be able to live if they have no other economic options.
Es bastante difícil de conseguirlos, difícil de conseguir. Muchas personas, acá en su mayoría, no tienen ni una nevera. Para mí la mayor bendición es saber valorar la vida. Entonces acá yo aprendí a valorar lo más mínimo. La última buena fue en diciembre de 15 millones. De ahí para acá no hemos conseguido nada bueno, nada. Entonces por eso tú siempre vas a ver que en mi casa hay muchas hierbas, así como las piedras, las gemas, cada una tiene una propiedad. Entonces la esmeralda en general es una piedra de poder. Es una piedra que da temperamento, que da fuerza, que da salud. La esmeralda, por ser relacionada con el color verde, es el color de la salud, de la abundancia, de la prosperidad. O sea, yo sentirme orgullosa de decir soy de Muzo, por lo que realmente somos, que somos personas guaqueras, y el nombre y el término guaquero para nosotros es un orgullo. Quiero que las personas vengan y conozcan lo que realmente somos, los trabajadores que somos.
A small shift of this ladder can turn catastrophic in a matter of seconds. Navigating this path safely is the responsibility of Everest climbing guides, many of whom are ethnic Sherpas who earn $4,000 to $10,000 per climb. But usually, these guides can count on only one expedition per year. The job is one of the most dangerous in the world.
अब चाहिँ मेरो छोराछोरीमा चाहिँ यो काममा चाहिँ म लाग्दैन अब 10 वर्ष पछाडि शेर्पा पाउँदैन हिमालमा.
And while 2023 saw the most climbers on record, it also saw the most deaths. 332 people have been lost to Everest in the last century. Over a third of them were mountain guides. It's 2 a.m. at base camp, and Purba Wangchu Sherpa is leading a team of guides and climbers up the world's tallest mountain.
अहिले चाहिँ म हिसाब गर्दाखेरि 48 पुग्यो अझै 2-3 वर्षसम्म चाहिँ एभरेस्ट नै चढ्ने चाहिँ मेरो आशा छु.
Purba Wangchu has touched Everest's peak 14 times already.
पहिलोचोटि चढ्दाखेरि त अनुभव त के हो माथि पुग्दाखेरि त आफ्नो सबै परिवारहरू आफ्नो साथीहरूले पनि सबै बिर्सिन सक्ने कस्तो अब तल ताराहरू सबै माथि समेतबाट तल हेर्दाखेरि ताराहरू त यहाँबाट माथि जिल्का आउने देख्यो धेरै जमिनमा तलमुनि के हो त्यो बेला त समेत अब खुसीले हो कि नाकेले हो दुःखले हो अब धेरै नै भयो उत्साह भयो खुसी भयो भनौँ न.
He begins every climb with a puja ceremony, praying for safe passage and paying respect to the mountain. Even with his success rate, he never underestimates the deadly risks.
यही नै पूजा गरेको ठाउँमा नै अब हामीले चाहिँ बिहान नै अब हामी जानुभन्दा अगाडि धुपसु बालेर हामी एकदम शान्ति होस् एकदम सुरक्षा होस् भनेर चाहिँ एकदम हामी उ गर्छौँ. त्यसमा त तपाईँहरू अनुमति भएर पो आउनु भयो नि त.
Over the next several weeks, this group of 16 will climb for hours on end in total darkness, face the threat of avalanches and storms, and cross deadly passageways. Purba Wangchu and his team of experienced guides are their best chance of making it to the summit and surviving.
It gives you a lot of confidence. You know, when your Sherpa has 15, 16 summits, like some of these Sherpas here, when you're at high altitude and you're in those situations and they tell you, you know, it's okay, it's going to be okay. It's very reassuring that they've summited so many times.
It's more than just mentally reassuring. On the mountain, the choices guides make directly affect whether a climber lives. The next morning, another group of climbers is gearing up for its expedition.
It takes a bit of time, to put it, but it saves your foot on the minus 30 or 50 sometimes.
Near base camp at 5,364 meters, climbing guides lead a vital training course. Without this refresher, climbers won't know how to work with their specific expedition team. The guides are using the limited time they have today to review how best to handle steep inclines and to teach this team how to problem solve on the spot.
Sorry.
The course is one of the services included in a mountain guide's cost. Guides only work with experienced high-altitude mountaineers, a requirement of the Nepalese government.
But that doesn't mean the climbers are ready to brave Everest's extreme climate yet.
I think if you are talking about high altitude mountaineering, it's important to do this, at least every 6 months. It keeps your body ready for, I think, lack of oxygen. I came here by helicopter, which is not probably, it was not the best idea. So the first day was quite hard.
It'll be Ismail's second attempt at summiting Everest. He confronted the danger that awaits his new team over a decade ago.
We almost reached 8,500, but because of the very unfavorable weather conditions, had to return. So the summit was very close. So after 11 years, I'm back.
Ismail averted catastrophe in his first summit attempt, but not everyone is so lucky. When climbers are critically injured, guides have to be prepared to switch an expedition to a rescue and provide emergency relief. In May 2023, a team of Sherpa Guides rescued a climber from Everest's death zone. Over the course of 6 hours, the guides carried him on their backs down to Camp 3. Since the 2019 season, as a safety measure, Nepal has required every climber to be accompanied by at least one climbing guide. And choosing a local guide has its distinct benefits on Everest. Many of these mountain guides are Sherpas, an ethnic group native to the slopes of Mount Everest.
The conquering team was composed of 20 Americans, aided by Sherpa tribesmen who acted as carriers.
Though the term Sherpa is informally used as a catch-all for Everest guides, the Sherpa people have been closely involved in mountaineering here since the very first Everest expeditions. Their tissues use oxygen more efficiently and preserve muscle energy better than people from lowlands. That's one of the reasons Sherpa guides can assist their climbers with heavy loads without risking as much physical strain.
I've got a very good Sherpa, and he carries a lot. So about 10 kg I would carry, but they would carry 3 times that.
And it's indispensable, especially here at the Khumbu Icefall, where 3 Sherpas lost their lives in 2023. At an elevation of 5,486 meters, the team slowly makes its way through shifting glaciers. The group is also relying on the work that locals known as icefall doctors did months earlier. These specialised climbers establish the safest route to the top of Everest every season. A separate fee of $600 per expedition member goes to these icefall doctors to use the ladders and ropes they set up. But even with a clear path, climbers are still in danger of crevasses opening and closing, and even unexpected avalanches.
वर्षैपछि नै अब यति राम्रो राम्रो शेर्पाहरू हिमालमा बितिरहेका छन् त्यो सोच्दाखेरि त अब आफू पनि अब यस्तो हिमालमा चाहिँ किन गर्ने आफ्नै साथीहरूको ज्यान गुमाइरहेको छन् त्यसमा धेरै दुःख लाग्छ तर आउनुपर्ने कर्तव्यले नै फेरि आउनुपर्ने अवस्था आउँछ कि
Considering the danger, it's no surprise that mountain guides are one of the biggest expenses in summiting Everest. Climbers pay as much as $100,000 for the expedition and a chance at standing at the top of the world. For each of these climbs, guides certified by the International Federation of Mountain Guides Associations can charge agencies $10,000. Less experienced climbing guides make only $4,000 per climb. The agency Furba Wangchu works with, Makalu Adventure, says it pays guides an additional $1,500 for every successful summit.
I think it's okay for what it is. It's okay, and you know, the Nepalese government have to make money from it. The Sherpas have to make money, and you know, it would be an insult, I think, if we would just come and pay hardly anything and summit the mountain.
The majority of summits occur in the spring season, so most guides are hired for only one expedition, limiting their yearly income. Furba Wangchu says guides don't see enough money to justify continuously risking their lives.
हिमाल चढेर सबै त्यो पैसाले त हामीले कहाँ पुग्छ अब गोबर अब त्यो तलबाट आएको जति नै सबै हामीले पाए भन्दा हाम्रो अब जस घरको अब परिवारको दण्ड बालबच्चाको फीतिर सबै पुग्छ अब यहाँ पाउने भनेको त हामीले थोरै भने सबै अब फेरि ठुलो हकिमले लिइहाल्छन् त्यो गर्दाखेरि गाह्रो छ के
Guides also have to pay for their own gear, an investment of as much as $7,000. That includes clothing, boots, and backpacks that must withstand extreme conditions on the mountain. The downsuit alone can cost $2,000, and some gear needs to be replaced every few years. Oftentimes, working as a guide in the increasingly commercialized Everest industry comes out of necessity.
अब यो माउन्टेनियरिङमा लाग्नेको कारण चाहिँ किनभने हामी चाहिँ दुर्गम क्षेत्रमा जन्मेर त्यहाँ हाम्रोमा स्कुल नजिक आइपुगेन स्कुल नजिक आइपुग्दाखेरि हामीसँग सम्पूर्ण जस एजुकेसनहरु प्राप्त भएको छैन त्यही कारणले अब हामीले पनि अब केही आय स्रोतहरु चाहियो त्यही कारणले गर्दा हामी यो माउन्टेनियरिङ क्षेत्रमा लागेको हौं
To stay afloat, Furba Wangchu takes on other work.
अब चाहिँ म खेती गर्छु गाउँमा मकै आलु यताउता खेती गर्छु
This is common for many local guides who struggle to make ends meet from a job that routinely puts their life in danger.
मैले भने अलि नै क्लामिसेपा बिना अब एभरेज चाहिँ सक्सेस हुँदैन भनेर कहिले आउँछ भने थाहै हुँदैन त्यही भएर लाइफको ग्यारेन्टी नहुने कारण त्यही हो
That's one of the reasons Dawa Geljin Sherpa quit his career as a climbing guide.
हिजो तीनजना शेर्पा हिजो भर्खर नै त्यहाँ आइसफलमा परेर अब गयो नि त उसको बच्चा कतिवटा अब के गर्ने उसको सावधान थियो होला उसको चकनाचुर भयो अरु उसको फ्यामिलीले के भयो चकनाचुर भयो आर्मीमा भनेर हिमालमा जाने एउटै हो तपाईको लाइफको ग्यारेन्टी हुँदैन तपाईको
Like Dawa Geljin, Furba Wangchu openly questions whether the risks are really worth it, and he thinks it's a question more Sherpa guides will ask.
अब 10 वर्ष पछाडी शेर्पा पाउँदैन हिमालमा पाए पनि धेरै महँगो पर्छ
If Furba Wangchu is right, a declining number of expert mountain guides will coincide with the growing Everest tourism industry. In spring 2023, Nepal issued a record number of 478 permits to summit Mount Everest. This broke the record set 2 years earlier when it issued 409 permits. But as the industry grows, so too does the frequency of fatalities. Spring 2023 saw 18 deaths, 15 confirmed and 3 presumed, making it the deadliest season for climbers on Everest. 6 of those lost were Sherpa guides. At the same time, Nepal is seeing a growing job market, with locals increasingly choosing other professions.
अब मैले अनुभव गरेको पहिले हामी यो क्षेत्रमा कसरी लाग्यो भने चाहिँ अब हामीसँग चाहिँ एजुकेसन अब पढाइ पुरा नभएर हामी चाहिँ अब जागिर क्षेत्रमा गए पनि कुनै काम लागेन दिएन भनौं न अब दिको केटाहरु चाहिँ यो एभरेस्ट चढेर चाहिँ म मेरो जीवन र मेरो परिवारलाई दान्छ भने चाहिँ अहिले नसोचे हुन्छ
मलाई जहाँसम्म लाग्छ अबको 15-20 वर्षपछि एभरेस्टमा तपाईको शेर्पा हुँदैन किनभने एकदम अब सबै जानेर बुझ्ने भइरहेछ उनीहरुको छोराछोरी सबै अब कर्मतिर पढायो अब स्कुल राम्रोमा पढाएपछि तब बिस्तारै चढ्दैन क्या, तब एभरेज चढ्नु कम हुन्छ। आफ्नो ज्यानको नि माया छ नि, पैसा मात्रै ठुलो त के हो र, आफ्नो ज्यान पनि हेर्नु पर्यो नि।
The rising death toll on Everest has put more pressure on the Nepalese government to manage tourism on the mountain. In 2025, it plans to increase the price of climbing permits for foreigners to $15,000, up from $11,000. The government says the salaries of high-altitude guides and workers will also increase. This could be a beacon of hope for some younger locals who still see a future in being a mountain guide, like Shashant Nachirring Roy.
क्लाइम्बर अब अहिले पोर्टर गरिरहेको छु, अब गाइड अनि त्यसपछि क्लाइम्बर भएपछि यसो एक दुईजना गेस्टलाई लाने विचार छ।
ए मकै नेपाली पपकर्न हाई अल्टिट्युडलाई भन्दा अरू।
Unlike Purva Wangchu, Shashant is able to pursue his education. Still, the mountain compels him.
अब खासमा भन्नुपर्दा इनर्जेटिक अलिक स्ट्रङ भन्न न यही काम गरिरहेको छु, नाम कमाउँछु कि भन्ने आशा। अब म पछि क्लाइम्बर भन्न सक्छु।
But the truth is that the future for guides on Everest is unclear.
अब चाहिँ मेरो छोराछोरी चाहिँ यो काममा चाहिँ म लगाउँदिन, किनकि मैले यो क्षेत्रमा कमाएको पैसा नै छोराछोरीको यो एडुकेसनको लागि सबै मैले त्यहीँ पकाएँ। त्यही त गर्वको कुरा त हो। अब त्यता नि खै इच्छा पऱ्यो पो त हुन्छ नि त।
These oil wells are stuck in the past. And for over 100 years now, this has been the most lucrative job in this remote part of Indonesia, where the land has been ruined by toxic leaks. Workers risk their lives to extract the little that's left.
Ya gini kan gini, saya kan masih sehat, dia kan tercepit dikit ini, tercepit besi sama besi.
But they don't even own that oil. They're forced to sell to the state company, which locals say barely pays them enough to get by.
Ya takut gak takut, namanya orang kepepet.
So why do these toxic old wells still exist? And how did thousands of people end up trapped working in them? Pani learned to extract oil when he was just 19. Now he is teaching his nephew.
Jadi sifatnya terpaksa. Kalau berhenti menambang dihijaukan, nanti kehidupan keluarga berkurang.
Many of the 700 oil wells near his village in East Java were built by the Dutch in the late 1800s. Nowadays, locals own most of them, but only about 200 still work.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Pani always prays with his colleagues before starting his day.
Selamat kerja, ya!
The basic tools they rely on are improvised and rustic. Like this engine they've removed from an old dump truck. They have to step on gas and brake pedals to dip and lift this pipe that goes in. It's called a baler. It has little holes in the side to let oil in and out. They need enough rope to lower the baler all the way down into the oil reserve. At this location, the crude is found about 1,000 feet below, a depth almost equal to the height of Indonesia's tallest building. When the baler hits the bottom, the holes open up inside, letting oil in. Then, when the rope starts tugging up, the holes close, trapping the oil inside the tube. Pani uses this heavy iron rod to guide the baler down. Sometimes accidents happen.
Nah, gini kan gini, saya kan masih sehat, dia kan tercepit dikit ini, tercepit besi sama besi.
The whole process is messy. Pani says he sometimes wears a mask to protect himself from the liquid that sprays out. But what he fears most is a possible explosion. The old equipment can overheat and catch fire. With all this oil around, an open flame can quickly spark an inferno. In June, a fire at another well in Sumatra killed 4 workers. It's also hard to maintain these wells over time. They're too narrow and far too deep for people to crawl in and fix from inside.
Dia alati kan sudah nggak kena itu, seperti pipa yang di dalam putus, untuk meluruskan susah. Nah, akhir-akhirnya harus membuat lagi di sampingnya akhirnya gitu. Tadi
sometimes mud clogs up the well and prevents the baler from reaching the oil.
Jadi sepertinya buntu gitu.
The extracted oil runs off into these pools. In its crude form, it's mixed with mud and water. The oil floats to the top in a matter of minutes, and workers scoop it out. Pani's nephew, Joko Mulyono, helps. They use a vacuum to transfer the oil onto the car. About 200 years ago, before these oil wells existed, crude naturally oozed out of the ground here. Locals gathered small amounts to light lamps and make medicine. But in 1887, the Dutch, who colonized Indonesia, set up a large-scale drilling operation. Their oil company, Royal Dutch, managed many wells and refineries in East Java, and brought in workers who were paid low wages to help work for them. As demand for oil boomed around the world, drilling in Indonesia expanded too, and this land became unrecognizable. The Dutch left after Indonesia gained independence in 1945. But the oil that had leaked from the wells had already polluted the surrounding earth and water, making farming, the work that had sustained locals long before these wells existed, much harder. Extracting oil became the most lucrative work, but there wasn't nearly as much as before. When Pani started this job in 2004, they could draw up to 900 gallons from this well in a day. Now it takes him 1 week to get 55 gallons. There's more underground, but the well is too shallow to reach it, and Pani doesn't have the machinery to drill deeper.
Tapi kalau buat harta benda yang kaya raya enggak bisa, karena keluarnya itu kan itu kejar-kejaran sama tetangga sama.
Even though workers own the land, the state-owned company Pertamina possesses the right to all the oil underground. So, by law, Workers have to sell their oil to the company through a local government enterprise. But they often make more money selling it to off-the-radar refineries instead, where Pani can make 2 times what Pertamina would pay. Latest estimates from 2014 found that the state company was losing nearly $11 million annually to workers who sell their oil independently. Even after selling on the black market, workers still only make about $12 a week, which is not a lot, even in this part of Indonesia. That's why most of the workers bring lunch from home and share it with the others.
Sayur daun singkong. Cocok ini.
Pani pays his nephew Joko an additional $6 weekly to drive the oil to the refinery. That's become its own profession.
Kalau sekitar sini ya peduli sih Mbak sebenarnya. Tapi mau gimana lagi kalau di sini kan memang lokasi minyak penambangan. Mau nggak mau ya kita harus mengikutin gitu.
Joko has been at it for 16 years now. He used to make around 10 trips a day, each for a different well owner. But that's dropped down to just 4 or 5 on a busy day.
Ya kadang ya 3 atau 4, kadang ya sama sekali nggak ada. Tergantung minyak dari sumurnya keluarnya banyak atau dikit.
Pani's neighbor Jainuri processes the oil at this artisanal refinery using traditional techniques. He works 13-hour days, carrying 20-pound containers filled with crude up and down these hills. He dumps them into these 60-gallon drums. First, Jainuri lights this underground furnace. He'll use it to heat the crude in this drum. He fills it halfway to give it space to boil. It has to reach at least 570 degrees Fahrenheit before it starts evaporating, which is key to refining it. The vapor comes up through these pipes, which are cooled with water. That turns the vapor back into a liquid.
Bagian itulah mengeluarkan minyak dari pipa itu. Lama. Prosesnya lama.
They bring that refined fuel to the boiler and heat it once more until it evaporates back through these pipes. Jainuri repeats this process 3 or 4 times to get different types of fuel, like gasoline and diesel.
Itu tradisi zaman dahulu. Zaman orang-orang tua mbah kami. Begini terus biar rakyat kita bisa makan.
All day long, workers here are breathing these fumes, a combination of nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide, which can cause cancer and brain damage. And if the gases get trapped underground, everything could explode.
Sebenarnya bahaya, cuma gimana lagi, soalnya adanya ya itu.
And an entire day's work only fetches about 1 drum of diesel. That's about enough to fill a car 3 times. Refineries are also required to sell their oil to Pertamina, but many sell at small black markets like this one. Locals buy oil for $2.27 per gallon. That's double what Pertamina would pay for it, although the price fluctuates based on global oil prices. The quality of the artisanal oil is inferior, so locals mostly use it to fuel the engines in their wells. Some also use it in their cars, because the nearest gas station is 60 miles away. That trip would cost them more in gas than they make in a day. Indonesia has enough oil reserves underground to power the entire country for at least 4 years. Still, it imports about half of the oil it consumes. And these artisanal workers aren't allowed to dig new wells on their own land. They could get all their oil extraction rights revoked. Instead, they have to allow large companies to drill on their property, a law the country passed in 2001 to boost foreign investment and ramp up oil drilling. That year, ExxonMobil discovered an oil field nearby and soon signed on to help Pertamina develop it, buying out 3,000 small landowners first. The plant started extracting in 2008 and now produces about 200,000 barrels annually, about a quarter of the country's oil output. But locals say what they really need from the government is funding for better machinery, so they can develop their fields themselves.
Tidak mempunyai cita-cita kok. Pemerintah membantu, saya tidak mengharapkan dan tidak meminta.
So workers find ways to make do on their own, because they say they have to. They keep digging more wells like these to tap as many shallow reserves as they can.
Ya dibilang ilegal ya ilegal, dibilang enggak ya enggak. Soalnya ini sudah turun-menurun, tinggalan Belanda zaman dahulu. Soalnya zaman Belanda yang ngusir orang-orang sini, harapannya ya harus tetap begini, biar dikelola rakyat.
According to some estimates, output from illegally dug wells is outpacing production at the legal ones by about 10 barrels a day. Meanwhile, locals feel trapped in work that's damaged their land, and now seems like their only option for a stable income.
Kalau hati saya menggarap sumur yang seperti bebas seperti ini, hati saya tidak enak. Tidak enak, sebenarnya itu juga mengganggu apa-apa. Tapi berhubung kekuatan keluarga saya juga membutuhkan hasil, saya tetap ikut mengambil hasil dari minyak. Jadi sifatnya terpaksa. Gitu.
Pani's family grew mangoes here for generations. But for the last few years, his crops have kept dying.
Loh, kalau saya sedih itu menyayangkan ini, gundul semua ini. Saya sedih sebenarnya. Tapi menghidupkan kan nggak bisa karena itu. Bagaimana kalau menyelesaikan kalau nggak ditangani pemerintah?
Still, he's grateful for every drop of oil he can get. And that it's made it possible for his daughter to go to school and to have a better life than he did.
Kalau uang dari sumur ini kan sekarang kecil, Bu. Buat biaya anak sekolah pun masih mencari, masih kurang.
Sand is the most mined material in the world. And in this part of Africa, miners like Yona Elvis dive up to 300 times a day, wearing little to no clothes, scooping out buckets that are 33 pounds.
Ma famille, je suis le seul à pouvoir exercer ce métier. Personne d'autre n'a eu le courage de le faire.
60% of the sand used in concrete around the world comes from riverbeds like this one in Cameroon. And global demand for it has tripled in the last 2 decades. Satellite images from China show how it has changed the shape of a major body of water. And now, experts say sand is being extracted much faster than it can be naturally replaced. So how can the world avoid a sand crisis? And what does it mean for people like Elvis, who rely on it to survive? Yona Elvis's home in southwestern Cameroon is made from the same sand he mines every day. He lives with his family and pet monkey Curtis.
Bon, quand je lève le matin, je prends d'abord une bénédiction avec les enfants et puis bon, je commence à me préparer. Déjà, je suis déjà préparé. Maintenant, c'est psychologique.
His home is just a short walk away from the river Quarry. There, he meets up with his diving partner, Njombi. They can look out for each other in case of emergencies.
C'est un métier qui nécessite la force, le courage, la persévérance. Donc ces 3 éléments, quand vous les avez, exercer notre métier me paraît peu difficile.
The Quarry is one of Cameroon's largest rivers, flowing for nearly 100 miles. It's known as the River of Prawns, but fishermen are seeing a decline due to sand mining. Once they reach the deepest part, Njombi pushes the stick into the ground to anchor the boat. Elvis jumps in wearing nothing but skin-tight shorts to swim more easily in the water. Then, he uses a steel bucket to scoop up sand from the river floor. The water is so murky, Elvis can't see anything, even if he wore goggles.
Je suis déjà comme un aveugle. Je sais qu'ici, il y a un caillou, là-bas, il y a ceci, là-bas, il y a cela. Donc, c'est une routine, c'est ce que je fais tous les jours.
After 12 years, he says he's mastered the art of controlling his breath and conserving his energy.
Je peux retenir mon souffle dans l'eau. Je dirais même à plus d'1 minute. Mais quand je suis en train de travailler, le rythme devient autrement. Parce qu'il va falloir une rapidité. C'est des entrées, des sorties, des entrées, des sorties, entrées, sorties.
Elvis and Njombi take turns scooping out water that fills the canoe. After 2 hours of diving and dumping, their exhaustion begins to show. Locals say deaths are common here, but because this is an unregulated profession, there are no official records on injuries or fatalities. Elvis nearly drowned once while helping a new diver.
La pirogue a chaviré. Je suis allé à son secours. Immédiatement, il m'a approché. J'ai essayé de faire tout et tout pour pouvoir m'échapper entre ses mains. Il n'y avait pas moyen.
By the end of Elvis's 4-hour shift, he's excavated 9 tons of wet sand. That's equal to the weight of 2 African elephants. His boss, who owns the canoe, will sell this sand to local contractors and pay each of them about $12 a day. It's more than Elvis can make from fishing, but it's barely enough to afford 3 meals a day. Elvis and his family of 4 scrape by on this salary.
Mon rêve, n'est-ce pas, dans ce métier, c'est pouvoir travailler, économiser un peu d'argent, chercher quoi faire d'autre, pouvoir, n'est-ce pas, entretenir ma petite famille.
But some people are in the line of work for other reasons, like miner Conjean Simon, who views it as a sport. He competes in local sand mining tournaments and says he's earned the title of champion.
Gros bras, l'animal.
Gon spends 30 minutes exercising every morning and even runs to the quarry. His role model is Africa's first heavyweight UFC champion, Francis Ngannou. Today, he's seen as a local hero in this region. Someone who escaped a life of poverty to become one of the best MMA fighters in the world.
Ça me fait chaud au cœur de voir toute la population qui est là, tout le monde qui s'est mobilisé pour cet événement, pour la bienvenue à la maison.
Meanwhile, Gon continues to plunge 23 feet underwater to test his strength and earn enough cash for him, his wife, and 2 kids. Some of the sand is exported to countries like South Africa, the Central African Republic, and even France. But as Cameroon is in the midst of a construction boom, most of the sand is used locally to make concrete. Demand for sand across the world has reached 50 billion tons per year, enough to build a 9-story wall around the planet. The kind found in riverbeds comes from rocks that broke apart over millions of years as they traveled downstream. The coarse, leftover grains are sharper and can carry more moisture than desert sand, which makes them the perfect binding material for construction. In 2022, the global market for construction sand was worth about $23 billion. It is expected to grow to $46.5 billion by 2031. The United States is the world's top producer, while China is the biggest consumer of sand. But it also produces its own. Boyang Lake in Jiangxi province is the biggest sand mine on the planet. Satellite images show just how much excavation has changed the northern branch of the country's largest freshwater lake, more than doubling its surface area from 1997 to 2019. The lake is also a key flood outlet for the Yangtze River and its tributaries, all of which are mined excessively too. All this mining is causing water levels in the lake to fall abnormally during winter months, endangering aquatic animals like porpoises and populations of migratory birds. Other countries have similar problems. In Cambodia's Mekong River, barges scrape out more sand than can be naturally replaced. This kind of large-scale dredging caused riverbanks to collapse twice in 2021.
The river becomes deeper, and the way that the river will flow will either be faster or slower, depending on how the shape is affected. And that has consequences on river flows and on potential flooding or drought.
Dams upstream have also reduced the flow of sediment to the lower part of the Mekong. Experts say mining is also to blame for erosion along Cambodia's coastline.
Anything that we take out of the environment has an impact. If you take the sand from rivers, that sand will not reach the coastline. So eventually it will lead to coastal erosion.
Mining is also taking a toll on local fishing villages. Tin Yusos lives on a boat with his wife and granddaughter. He makes a living fishing in the nearby Tonle Sap and Mekong rivers. But he says work is tough lately because all the dredging has disrupted the fish supply. And because of the receding water levels, his livelihood is at stake. But here in Cambodia's capital, sand is fueling a housing boom. Since 2003, developers have filled in 60% of Phnom Penh lakes with sand to create prime real estate for villas and shopping malls. But people who have lived and worked on these lakes for decades now face eviction as trucks full of sand and gravel get closer and closer to their homes. Cambodia also exports sand. UN data for the past decade shows the country sent $27 million worth to countries like Singapore, Thailand, and China. Rapid urbanization around the world is what's driving up demand. In India, 25 to 30 people are migrating every minute from rural areas to cities. By 2030, the country's urban population is likely to reach 600 million. And they will all need housing. So India is excavating sand too. Here, miners extract it from the Beki River, using basic equipment. It's polluting the water and destroying riverbeds and fish populations. But for some, mining for sand is as valuable as finding gold. And many work illegally, in dangerous conditions, because the money is worth it. They can earn up to $15 for a boatload of sand, which is 4 times the average daily wage in India. Now, sand is being mined faster than it can be replaced through natural geological processes. So, some companies are now manufacturing it to help reduce the impact on rivers and lakes. They crush bedrock, often from old construction sites or demolition waste. This creates particles about the same size as sand. They're filtered and washed to remove impurities like silt or clay, which can damage concrete. That's why experts say manufactured sand is even better than natural sand for building. But crushing and grinding M-sand can pollute surrounding soil and water. And it's more cost-effective because it's often produced closer to construction sites, bringing down the cost of transportation. But back in Cameroon, people still continue to mine from riverbeds.
Si, n'est-ce pas, une technologie, venir apprendre ce métier pour pouvoir extraire du sable, c'est que la plupart de nous,
After a long day of work, his muscles are sore. So he kicks back and relaxes with his colleagues at the local bar.
La chose que j'aime le plus dans mon métier, moi je dirais, c'est mon entourage. Mon entourage.
And he brightens up when he thinks about what really motivates him to do this work.
Mon moment préféré de la journée, je dirais, dès mon retour, quand je suis à la maison avec ma petite famille. Mon frère, c'est comment? Parce qu'avec tout ce moment où je quitte la maison, ils ne savent pas si vraiment je vais retourner. Donc du coup, quand je rentre et je les trouve sains et saufs, pour moi, c'est un moment vraiment fantastique.
This is jadeite, a stone that is rarer than a diamond. And the hunt for it is so deadly, the jewel is known as blood jade. The hills in Myanmar's Kachin state hold nearly all of it. Every year, dozens of miners are buried and killed by landslides. But what really goes on here has mostly remained a mystery, because the mines are guarded by the military 24/7. So we had to film on a phone. Reports suggest Chinese companies illegally operate the mines and allegedly exploit desperate workers. About 90% of the jade mined here is smuggled across the border into China, where it's considered a sacred stone. We went to the mountains of Myanmar to find out how the hunt for a jewel that legend says grants eternal life has killed so many people. Black markets usually come to life after dark because jade is believed to shine brightest in the moonlight. Most sales aren't documented or taxed. But if the gem was sold legally, Myanmar could earn an estimated $31 billion a year. Reports suggest many buyers come from neighboring China, even though selling to foreigners is against the law. In the daytime, about 400,000 people work in mines in the Pakant region, in northern Myanmar's Kachin state. Many Chinese companies bribe officials to illegally operate here. They dump back topsoil after picking out large stones, and they let miners dig through it. 38-year-old Thant has mined here for 7 years.
ကြောက်တူးတဲ့ဟာကဟိုစတူးတုံးကတော့လောပန်းဖြစ်ခြင်းလို့ပေါ့မရတော့ဒီတိုင်းပဲစေးသမားပဲဖြစ်တာပဲရှိတယ်
About 75% of miners here are addicted to drugs like heroin and meth. Thant says he'd never tried those drugs before coming here. Now he shoots up multiple times a day. He says some of his Chinese bosses paid portions of his salary with free meals and heroin. He asked us to hide his identity because he feared his employers would retaliate.
ပတ်စံလက်တက်တာရယ်လူလည်းတော့ဟိုအချိန်ပြည့်ခိုင်းလို့ရလို့မိအစီကိုပေးကြအောင်
These claims can be hard to verify because most of the mining happening here is illegal. Not a single mining permit has been issued since a military coup in 2021. The region has seen violent conflict since the early 1960s. The Kachin people who are native to these mountains have been fighting for independence. They have their own army known as the KIA, which has been battling the Myanmar armed forces and other ethnic groups. The war has killed thousands of Kachin civilians in the past decade alone. We reached out to the KIA and the Myanmar military, but did not get a response. The conflict has allowed lawlessness to run rampant, as well as the illegal drug trade, which has become a multi-billion-dollar industry across the country.
အခုကဒီမှာအဲ့လိုမျိုးဝင်ရင်တိုင်းဝင်တအားပေါ်နေတော့ကြတော့ဟိုဝယ်လို့လဲလွယ်ကူတော့သုံးကျင်နေကြတာပေါ့
Myanmar is the world's biggest producer of opium and meth. Drugs from here are trafficked to China and nearby countries. The profits are fueling the Kachin War. And jade mining is funding it too. Most of the jade from Myanmar gets smuggled to China, where the stone has been thought to bring good luck and have healing powers for millennia. Legend says this stone could make their souls live on forever. It has also been found buried alongside royals in ancient tombs. Today, China's wealthiest wear jade as a symbol of status and power. Chinese businesses reportedly pay Myanmar locals up to $400,000 per trip to smuggle trucks of jade into the country. The gem's price grew tenfold in the first decade of the 2000s, and it's still growing exponentially according to the most recent estimates. There's a cheaper kind called nephrite that's widely sold in Chinatowns around the world. But Myanmar's Kachin state is one of the only places that has jadeite, which is especially green and transparent. So rare that a single bangle can sell for over $3 million. Estimates have found that the Kachin Mountains hold about 90% of it. But they're hollowing out. Miners like Shui Tak search for what's left. He uses a pocket light to check for a hint of green. Dozens get buried alive or drown because of landslides each year. In 2020, a single landslide killed about 200 miners. But Shui says mining is his only option. He came out as a transgender man 7 years ago and has struggled to find jobs ever since. Myanmar is one of the hardest countries to find employment for people who identify as LGBTQ. A nationwide law makes it legal to arrest people who openly express their gender identity. He says he still looked too much like a woman when he started mining here. Few women work in these mines. Some have spoken out about sexual abuse by miners and soldiers. Shui says other men treated him well. And today, many have become close friends. But over the years, Thant has lost many of his. He lives in a hut in a cemetery where some of them were buried. He moved here from a town nearly 300 miles away after his family's house burned down. He promised his wife and children he'd return rich and rebuild their home. He says the drugs help numb the pain.